Chapter 76. The day finally came. The old place, the old club, the old furnishings. This incident aroused Xia Yu and Tony's obsessive-compulsive disorder. The two of them tried their best to make everything from the clothes to the wine bottles to the matches and cigarettes on the table look like those of that era. In the words of Peggy Carter, "I don't know if it's true, but it doesn't look awkward." Except for Phil Coulson and the captain, all the members of the Avengers Alliance were present, and they all changed into clothes from that era, matching the date tonight. "Why don't we take a car?" the captain asked a young man beside him on the streets of London. "This is a new member of S.H.I.E.L.D's action team. He lives in London. He said that his grandfather was rescued from Hydra's base by Captain America during World War II, but unfortunately he was not able to join the Howling Commandos. Now his grandfather is seriously ill and doesn't have much time left. His only wish before he dies is to meet Captain America." The captain couldn't refuse the request, as there were so few of his contemporaries still alive. So he followed them to London without hesitation and changed into the military uniform of that year as requested. It was just a bit embarrassing to let the captain get off the bus halfway and walk on the streets of London wearing this outfit. "But now that we're here, people say we're almost there, so let's just take a few steps." As he walked, the captain realized something was wrong. It was too quiet around him. Was there no one and no lights on this street? The captain turned around suddenly, and there was no one. Oops! The captain's first reaction was that he had fallen into a trap and was ambushed. Suddenly, all the street lights lit up, and the signs of all the shops on both sides also lit up. Dense crowds of people suddenly emerged from the alleys on both sides, all dressed in World War II-era clothing. Several newspaper boys rushed out, holding newspapers and shouting, "Victory! Germany has surrendered! Captain America has eliminated Hydra! The war is over!" Everything around him, the signs, the people, the lights, the shops, were so familiar. Although the captain was a little confused, he did not feel threatened by these people. This street and the familiar feeling of these people pushed the captain to move forward involuntarily. A newspaper flew over on the way at some point. The captain took it and saw that the whole page was about victory and about how he defeated Hydra. The date was Saturday, May 12, 1945. Captain America remembered clearly that this day was Nurse's Day, the day he and Peggy Carter had agreed on, but hadn't he already flown the plane to the Arctic Circle and crashed in Greenland? After sleeping for more than 60 years, he woke up. The war was won, and Peggy Carter was already over 90 years old, but all this was happening before her eyes. Steve Rogers had no ability to think at this time. He could only follow his feelings and keep walking forward until he saw a neon sign. Stoke Club. When Steve Rogers saw the sign, his heart seemed to skip a beat. It doesn't matter whether the war is won, whether the country is asleep or not, whether it is true or false. Whoever wants to save the world can do so. But he has a date that he needs to keep at all costs. I glanced at my watch and saw that the time was almost up, 7:56. Bang! 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 Steve Rogers felt like he could hear his own heartbeat. He had never been so excited even when he was carrying a bomb alone to the Arctic Circle. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. That guy Bucky would laugh at me if he knew about this, the captain thought. Finally, he took a difficult step and walked into the Stoker Club. 1 step, 2 steps, I reached the gate and finally got in. The bartender, the band, and a table of soldiers next to them were shaking their bottles and singing Blood on the Riser loudly. There was a band on the stage above, but it seemed to be taking a break, and there was a banner hanging above it saying the war was over. Steve Rogers' hands began to tremble slightly. He was afraid that he would not be able to see the person who was waiting for him to meet. Suddenly, all the lights in the venue dimmed and everything became quiet. The saxophone began to play slowly, "It's been a long, long time." Steve had heard this song before, and this was what he wanted on a date. A spotlight lit up in the middle of the stage. A beautiful woman in a red evening gown stood in the center of the spotlight, with her back to Steve Rogers. The back looked familiar. Steve opened his mouth, wanting to call out Peggy Carter, but no sound came out. It seemed like a century had passed before the woman in the red dress slowly turned around. At this moment, the whole picture was jumping frame by frame in Steve's eyes. He stared at the face of the girl who turned around, starting from the curly hair on her forehead. Eyebrows, nose, corners of mouth, eyes. Yes, that's her, Peggy Carter, that's her. She is the same girl as before, but seems even younger. Peggy Carter turned to look at the captain and smiled. A smile is enough to conquer a whole country. Anyway, the captain was completely dumbfounded. You're over 60 years late, Steve. So, now have you learned to dance? My hero. With one turn and one sentence, Steve Rogers' whole world lit up. The song "It's Been a Long Time" is not from the captain's era, but it is the song that Captain and Carter danced to in Avengers Alliance 4. I didn't expect that the money ability is so powerful that a whole street was designed, and there are extras. Haha. Chapter 77. The people present left one after another, and in the end, Xia Yu dragged away Bruce Banner, who was playing the saxophone on the stage. Under the light, the two of them seemed to have lost all consciousness and just danced slowly. The people were gone, the music was gone, and the two of them were unaware of anything. At this moment, there was only each other in the world. A group of people ran out, and the extras on the street also dispersed. I bought a bank for this street and spent so much time and effort to set it up, but I am not the protagonist. I should change my name to Philanthropist. Tony said. Let's just leave like this? Don't worry about them anymore. Banner asked, pointing inside. Okay, buddy, the two people inside are almost 200 years old in total. They can take care of themselves. I have prepared a double bed for them in the office on the second floor, and even prepared safety tools. Tony signaled Banner not to worry about it. Hearing Tony talking, Xia Yu asked inexplicably, is it a small one? Same as last time, Tony said. Oh. Yeah. The two of them high-fived and cheered. After the group completed their mission, they returned to New York. Xia Yu left a message on Steve's phone, saying that no one wanted to see them in New York for the next week, and they could come back after they had their sweet time. In the vast universe, in an unknown star field, a broken land mass with a radius of only 20 kilometers is floating in the universe. Such broken land masses or meteorites are common in the universe and are not rare. What is rare is that there are people in this land mass. I'm ready, my lord. As long as the Chitauri army is safe, I will bring the Tesseract to you. It was Loki who spoke. You'd better complete your mission. Remember, it is the adults who gave you a chance to make a comeback, you failed loser. A man in black robe said to Loki. I don't need your reminder. I can definitely get the Tesseract back. I am the king of Asgard. Loki roared a little angrily. Keep your humility in front of the adults, you stray dog. The black-robed man reminded Loki. Mind your own business, and I hope your army won't let me down. Loki did not give in. You dare to question my army? The man in black robe was also angry. Stop arguing and go complete your mission, Asgard. I feel that the Tesseract has appeared. You should leave for Earth immediately. There was a floating throne above the two of them, and sitting on it was Thanos. Thanos waved his hand and stabbed a jeweled scepter into the ground in front of Loki. Take this and go. Thanos waved his hand, and Loki bowed and left. My lord, this Asgard man cannot be reused. The man in black robe said to Thanos. Odin is still alive, although he is very weak. But no one knows how much power the old man still has. He is the king of God. There is no better candidate than Loki. Let him try. When it comes to Odin, even when he was weak, Thanos did not dare to underestimate him. Sir, I am also willing to go to Earth. Please give me a chance. A dark shadow appeared in front of the floating throne and knelt on one knee to challenge Thanos to a fight. You. Thanos put a playful smile on his face. I'll give you a chance to wash away your shame. Take Holy Place number 2 with you and help Loki when necessary. If everything goes well, don't act rashly. Thank you, sir. In an underground research base somewhere of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury was standing quietly behind a table, as if waiting for someone. There was a white box on the table, and Nick Fury's eyes were always on the box. It should be a very important thing. Finally, 2 S.H.I.E.L.D. agents brought down a man with a mask on his head. Nick Fury waved his hand, and 2 agents took off the old man's hood. It turned out to be a middle-aged white man, Eric Selvig, Jane Foster's father. I thought they were going to kill me, said Dr. Selvig. After taking off his hood, he realized that it was probably a secret government department that wanted him to do research. Nick Fury walked forward slowly. I heard about what happened in New Mexico. Your research impressed many smart scientists. I still have a lot of things to do. Foster theory and the portal to the other dimension are all research that has never been done before. Dr. Selvig declined the invitation indirectly. Nick Fury turned and walked towards the table. Legends and history tell us that there are usually big differences, but as long as you are good at discovering, you will always find something that is both, and that is not just a legend. Nick Fury said as he opened the box. Inside is a square object emitting blue light, which is the tesseract that wraps the space gem. Dr. Selvig looked at the tesseract in confusion. What is this? Power, strength, energy, it depends on how you interpret it. Nick Fury looked at Dr. Selvig and continued, if we can develop it well and figure out how to access its energy, we will have endless energy or power. I think this is well worth a closer look, Dr. Selvig said. Nick Fury nodded with satisfaction. He was sure that the doctor would stay and help with the development after seeing it, but what he didn't see was the shadow of Loki appearing behind the doctor. Chapter 78. Everyone who returned to New York quickly went back to their original life track, training, research, etc. However, Tony Stark was so busy recently that he didn't know what to do because the Stark building had been completed. This is Tony Stark's heavy blow after he announced the closure of Stark's weapons department. The entire building is independently powered by its own redesigned reactor. This will be a symbol of Stark Industries as a leader in the renewable clean energy industry. It is also a symbol of the resurgence of Stark Industries. In order to combat those media outlets that complained that Stark Industries was about to go bankrupt, Tony even made a light box with his own surname and placed it on the building. He even reserved several floors of space at the top for his own personal research and living. Rather than calling it a building, it would be more accurate to say that Tony built a sky villa on top of the Stark building. In comparison, Xia Yu's house on the rooftop of the Los Angeles Herbal Group is just a piece of rubbish. No wonder Xia Yu said that compared to Tony, he is just a house with enough food and clothing. For the sake of this building, Tony not only has to complete the energy supply of the building independently, but also has to cooperate with Pepper to attend various promotions and activities, flying all over the world. He is basically not seen in the base recently. So Bruce Banner became the only one doing research in the laboratory. The two of them could still chat from time to time, but it was inevitable that one person would have more random thoughts. Especially after just coming back from London where I ate so much dog food, I still want to watch Xia Yu and Natasha Romanoff show their affection. Hawkeye? He has a wife and kids. Thor? When he has nothing to do, he swings his hammer and takes Jane flying around the sky to look at the moon and stars. Even Phil Coulson recently met a girl who plays the cello, and she keeps telling him all the time about how artistic that girl is, how well she plays the cello, etc. Dr. Banner is lonely and melancholy. Every morning when he wakes up, his hair falls out. Why isn't Tony here? No, even if Tony Stark comes back, he's not single. He has a domineering female CEO. Poor Dr. Banner, what he didn't know was that if Tony didn't have Pepper, it would be a bigger blow to him. People are like this. After Dr. Banner escaped the military's pursuit and failed in his suicide attempt, he said to himself that he would never find a wife in his life and he would thank God for being able to live a stable life. At that time, he only wanted to control his anger and not transform casually. Even though he was brought back to New York by Xia Yu and joined the Avengers, his life was considered stable. He could study with top scientists like Tony Stark every day, and he was already very satisfied. He has never thought about finding a wife. If he cannot control his transformation one day, it will be a disaster. Therefore, the honest Dr. Banner thinks that finding a girlfriend is equivalent to harming others, and he has given up the idea long ago. Besides, Xia Yu and Natasha Romanoff were a couple in the base, so everyone else was alone here, right? Even if they knew that someone else had a wife or girlfriend, they would generally ignore it, not have any contact with them, and not think about it. But after going to London this time, Banner found that his mentality had collapsed when he came back. He then silently counted the situations of the people around him, and found out that he was the only one who was single. The more I comforted myself that I had already prepared myself for the fate of being alone, the more I thought about it. For example, when we were having dinner just now, Xia Yu asked Phil Coulson how his girlfriend was doing. Dr. Banner felt uncomfortable. Why did he have to talk about this in front of me? I am single. Banner also knew that no one was targeting him, but once the mentality was broken, there was no way to bring it back. I have started to suffer from insomnia in the past few days. The scenes of me and Betty Ross keep appearing in my mind. Now, Every night before going to bed, Dr. Banner uses hypnotic ability to give me psychological hints, saying that I am not qualified to think about these things, I am an unfortunate person who will only bring disaster to others, I am not qualified to live an ordinary life, and so on. Anyone who encounters this kind of thing will feel the same as Dr. Banner, but as an outsider, you can see at a glance that this can only have a counterproductive effect. Dr. Banner's personality is at two extremes from Tony Stark's, but they have one thing in common, they both keep their thoughts very secret and usually would never talk about them with anyone else, so no one noticed anything wrong with Banner these days. The captain asked me if there was anything important recently. He wanted to retrace the route they took in Europe during World War II with Miss Carter. It might take a little longer. Natasha Romanoff picked up her phone and said to everyone. Go ahead, Captain, you no longer belong to America. Is this a honeymoon? Everybody was joking, and everyone was sincerely happy for the captain and Peggy Carter for this event that everyone had contributed to. Peggy Carter waited for Steve Rogers for her whole life. When she was old and grey and about to pass away, she saw the love of her life returning. However, she could not even get out of bed. However, a pill from Xia Yu made Peggy Carter young again. She waited for a lifetime and her dream came true. Everyone will bless such a love story. So Xia Yu was happy for them from the bottom of her heart. Tell the captain that no one will exploit the labor of 2 centenarians. Neither the Avengers nor S.H.I.E.L.D. will. Let him go without worry. It would be best if I could see the news that a centenarian is pregnant, ha 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 ha. Everyone was laughing at the captain in the dark, and no one noticed that Banner had stood up and left the room. Chapter 79. Dr. Banner ran back to his room and sat cross-legged on the floor, his abdomen rising and falling with his breathing. It's a pity that he learned how to control anger, not emotions. The more emotions are suppressed, the more deadly they are. At night Banner took a cold shower and stood in the bedroom looking out the window. His mind was full of Betty Ross, which could not be shaken off. I was in New York, so close to Betty Ross, how about going to see her secretly to see if she was doing well? Once this idea came out, I could no longer suppress it. Why haven't I seen Banner recently? Does he go out every day? Xia Yu asked Natasha Romanoff at another dinner. He should have his own life, Xia. We are just an emergency team. We don't have much to do on weekdays. He can't stay in the lab alone without Tony. You should be happy for him. It's not easy for him to go out. Natasha Romanoff said. Then why has Phil Coulson been missing recently? Xia Yu felt that there were fewer and fewer people. He was called back to S.H.I.E.L.D. by Nick. There is a shortage of manpower recently. Fortunately, there are no field missions, otherwise Hawkeye and I might also be transferred. Natasha Romanoff pointed at Hawkeye and said. Oh, it seems like I'm the only one doing nothing. Should I go back to Los Angeles and manage my company well? Xia Yu said helplessly. And me? Thor pointed at himself. Go and play, kid. You're always busy going on dates. It's rare to see you here at night. Xia Yu rolled her eyes at Thor. Thor didn't even argue about the question, he was helpless when Odin mentioned the eldest brother. Jane is away on business lately, I don't have anywhere to go at night. Thor, come back to my house with me in a few days. I want my children to meet the legendary Thor. Hawkeye suddenly looked up and said to Thor. Thor was very happy, laughing and hugging Hawkeye's shoulders. Clint, I will be dressed and come over. Do you want me to wear my helmet? That way I will look more majestic. No, you can just dress casually. I just want to educate my children, broaden their horizons, and tell them that God is nothing special. Hawkeye continued to eat with his head down. Back to a few days ago, Bruce Banner finally couldn't help it and secretly went to see Betty Ross. At first he watched her from a distance. She is still as beautiful as ever, and seems to be living a good life. Banner said to himself in his heart, and secretly warned himself not to disturb other people's lives again. But once this happened, it would happen again. Gradually, Banner started hiding on the road that Betty had to take on her way home after get off work every day, just to see her. I don't know why, but Banner was very happy to find out that Betty was still single. He persuaded himself again, Betty needs to have her own life and someone who loves her. I will bless her. Betty Ross was not an ordinary girl either. She had experienced many things with Banner that ordinary people had never experienced. Moreover, she was the daughter of General Ross. Banner had been gone for 3 or 4 days in a row, and she felt that she might be followed. Picking up the phone casually and pretending to make a call, Betty Ross took the phone in her hand and, using the natural swing of her arms when walking, pointed the camera at the back, with her finger firmly pressed on the record button, in continuous shooting mode. No one likes being followed or monitored, and Betty is no exception, so when she got home she started selecting photos with the right angles and enlarging them one by one on her computer to look for them. At first she thought it was someone from the government or even her father. Many people had tried to find out Bruce Banner's whereabouts through her. If her father hadn't been a general, he would have been taken away long ago. As Betty Ross was flipping through the pages, she suddenly spotted a familiar figure and quickly zoomed in to take a look. "Is it you? Bruce, it must be you, you're back." Betty's tears fell instantly. Even though the photo was blurry and he was wearing a hat, Betty recognized him at a glance. "You still want to hide from me? No matter if you turn into a big green guy or something else, don't even think about leaving me this time." Betty Ross reached out and touched the familiar face on the computer screen and muttered to herself. "Banner can't stop. He secretly follows people on their way home from get off work every day, and he thinks he is very hidden. If Xia Yu knew this, he would definitely slap him on the head. If you want to follow people, why don't you learn from Hawkeye or Natasha Romanoff first? Do you, a nerd, think you are a professional in tracking?" That day, Banner hid in the crowd as usual, following Betty. Just when Betty passed an alley, two men suddenly came out and pulled Betty into the alley. "Betty, damn it!" Banner no longer cared about hiding himself and quickly chased after him. After entering the alley, Banner found that there was no one there. Without thinking too much, he quickly ran inside. When he reached the other end of the alley, he was suddenly pushed back by someone. Banner's back hit the wall hard, and before he could see who pushed him, the figure quickly came up and covered Banner's mouth with his mouth. Yes, Banner was trapped against a wall. Chapter 80. The moment Betty Ross kissed Banner, Banner knew who it was without even looking at her. The feeling was so familiar. Not to mention how long they had been dating, Banner had been dreaming about it so many times recently. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them used their lips and tongues to vent their longing for each other. Banner finally regained his sanity and asked tremblingly, "Just now I saw you being. Those were the extras I hired. It cost me $80 to lure out a stalker like you." Betty Ross still didn't let go and stared at Banner without moving. Betty, I can't, you know, I have to go, ah." Banner was halfway through his words when Betty kneed him hard in the stomach. Note that it is the lower abdomen, not the crotch. It is the lower abdomen, the lower abdomen, the lower abdomen. I have to say it 3 times because it is important. Why do I have to emphasize the lower abdomen? The first reason is to prevent nitpickers from questioning why Banner did not transform. The second reason is because what will Betty do if her own things are broken? The third and most important thing is to make up the word count. "Thanks." Banner gasped and slowly hunched over. Betty Ross simply grabbed Banner by the shoulders and lifted him up or pressed him against the wall. He said forcefully, "Listen to me, Bruce Banner. Don't tell me that you are afraid of hurting me. If you are afraid of hurting others, don't show up in New York. Don't follow me secretly. Now that you are here, I don't intend to let you go. If there is anything in the future, we will face it together. I am not afraid of anything, so what should you be afraid of? If you dare to leave me again, I will jump off the Empire State Building." I was going to say Stark Building, but then I thought of Men in Black 3, and I want to pay tribute to Will Smith, one of my favorite actors. Bad Boys for Life is released tomorrow and it's a big hit at the box office. Bruce Banner was not good at speaking to begin with, and after being retorted by Betty Ross, his lips trembled, but he could not say anything. He could deceive others but not himself, so he just turned around and left. Now Banner can't do that either. Then Banner was in a daze and didn't know how he followed Betty Ross, didn't know how he got to Betty Ross's house, didn't know how he got into Betty Ross's bed, didn't know how. "You mean you are now in a secret team of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Right in New York?" Betty Ross was a little excited and sat up from the bed. "Yes, there are Captain America, Tony Stark, and others. It's an emergency team formed by the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. We are mainly responsible for dealing with some major global crises, although there is nothing to do right now." Banner told Betty Ross everything. Betty Ross didn't care about this at all. Hearing this, he asked directly, "In other words, you don't have to be afraid of the military anymore. I mean, my father or someone else will come to trouble you, right?" "Well, theoretically, it should be like this, but they said it's best to keep a low profile now. After all, our abilities will attract the attention of many forces. If the pressure is too great, S.H.I.E.L.D. may not be able to solve all of it. Unless there is a global crisis right now, and we successfully save the world and gain unparalleled reputation, but this is too unlikely. That's much better than before. Listen, Bruce, I was not kidding you just now. If you disappear from my world again, I will jump off the Empire State Building. Betty Ross warned Banner again. As she was talking, Betty Ross' eyes suddenly turned red. She hugged Banner and choked up. I also wanted to start my life over, but I can't do it at all. My mind is full of your image. I don't care if you become a big green guy or something else. Don't leave me again, okay? Bruce Banner used both soft and hard tactics. He was thinking about her in the beginning. When he saw Betty Ross crying and saying she was going to jump off the building, he could no longer resist. He softened his heart and said, I promise you, I will never run away again. No matter what happens, I will not leave you. I promise you. After hearing his repeated assurances, Betty Ross smiled again and gave him another passionate kiss. Brain fills in the screen dividing line. What Xia Yu didn't expect was that her arrival and the early establishment of the Avengers Alliance actually reunited Bruce Banner and Betty Ross. Even if Xia Yu knew about this, she would feel very comforted. After all, Natasha Romanoff later was deeply in love with Bruce Banner. If it weren't for Banner's inferiority complex, the two of them would definitely be together. In fact, when Xia Yu faced Banner, she still felt a little guilty. Definitely, I just feel guilty, not regretful at all. After all, Banner didn't give Natasha Romanoff the home of her dreams. When I watched the movie, I wanted to slap Banner when I saw him reject Natasha Romanoff. In this way, Banner was forcibly retained by Betty Ross. Before Xia Yu's arrival could help the Avengers save the world, she saved the Avengers' emotional life first. Not only Banner, but also Captain America and Carter, Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, a destined couple, entered the love stage ahead of time under the influence of Xia Yu. If Xia Yu wanted to know about Banner, she would definitely call herself Marvel's matchmaker. Back to Banner and Betty Ross, the two haven't seen each other for a long time. A short separation is better than a new marriage, so in recent days Banner has come to pick up Betty Ross from get off work every night and go home together, just like a normal couple in love. The target has been confirmed to be Bruce Banner. At the window of an apartment in the distance, a man put down his binoculars and picked up the phone. Looking out the window, Banner and Betty Ross were chatting and laughing as they entered the apartment building together. The rating has dropped a bit, please give it a 5-star rating. Thank you so much. Chapter 81. The Avengers Alliance base welcomed a rare bustle because Captain America was back, but he came back alone. Peggy Carter went to Washington. Her identity could not be exposed, and the effect of the elixir could not be exposed either. However, she still had to take care of some old friends, so she wanted to take action personally to cover up some traces. This way, they would avoid the embarrassment of being teased by everyone when they came back together. Captain America was originally tough and had an aura of justice, but now he looks a lot more down to earth. Thank you, Xia. Captain America thanked everyone sincerely. God only knows how happy he was. Xia Yu looked at Captain America sincerely. Captain, we are really happy for you. You should have your own life. Every one of us should have one. This is the best outcome now. Xia Yu was really happy and a little moved. This feeling came from the fact that Captain America in his previous life chose to return to his past and live an anonymous life. Although seeing the elderly Captain America felt like a perfect ending, she still felt a bit like a hero's twilight years. Now that she can make up for this regret with her own hands, Xia Yu feels an indescribable feeling in her heart. This feeling is really warm. Xia Yu looked at each of them. In her previous life, she probably watched superheroes in movies. Now, to Xia Yu, everyone is a teammate, a comrade in arms, and a family member. He hopes that coming to this world can bring different and good results to everyone. This is what Xia Yu most hopes to see. Are you okay? Natasha Romanoff appeared at some point and held Xia Yu's hand. I'm fine, we'll all be fine, right? Xia Yu looked up at the New York sky with a complicated look in her eyes. As soon as Captain America came back, it was obvious that the pace of the entire base had become faster. In his previous life, Captain America was able to become the leader of the Avengers Alliance before the Civil War not just because he was called Captain America. Under his leadership, Everyone is very serious in the daily combat training. At least now the long-range vibration attack of the hammer critical hit shield has been developed, and Captain America still has considerable ability in some aspects. For example, today, Xia Yu was dragged by Captain America to do various attack tests for a whole day. The 18 dragon subduing palms was used at different internal force intensities for no less than 100 times, which made Xia Yu almost too tired to do daily activities with Natasha Romanoff in the evening. But when Xia Yu saw Natasha Romanoff looking at him seductively, he couldn't help but kiss her. In life, we must always struggle and strive for self-improvement, right? Just when Xia Yu was ready to go, a cell phone ring interrupted their lovemaking. No matter who you are, you'd better give me a reason. Xia Yu said unhappily. You are Xia, I'm Betty Ross. Bruce is in trouble. He was taken away by my father's people. He needs your help. The caller was Betty Ross, Dr. Banner's girlfriend. Banner? Are you her girlfriend? Xia Yu slapped her forehead and realized that this was Dr. Banner's real girlfriend, General Ross's daughter. Where are you? I'll come find you. Xia Yu didn't waste any words. She asked for the address and planned to go out to find Betty Ross. But Natasha Romanoff stopped her. Don't go, I'll go with Hawkeye. Natasha Romanoff said to Xia Yu. Why? To be honest, Xia Yu was a little anxious. After all, she felt it was her responsibility. She's been taken away by the military. What are you going to do? Break into the military base to rescue her? That would be a big deal. Besides, we don't know the situation now. What if someone in the military is monitoring Betty Ross? First bring her to the base quietly and find out the situation. Hawkeye and I are more professional. Don't worry, they can't hurt Banner. Natasha Romanoff advised Xia Yu. Then be careful. Change your clothes and I'll go get Hawkeye. He listened to the advice and ate a full meal. As long as Banner was there would basically be no safety issues. After all that commotion, the captain and Thor also got up, and everyone sat together waiting for news. Natasha Romanoff was indeed very professional and came back in less than an hour. Xia Yu had never watched the movie The Invincible Hulk seriously in her previous life, and didn't pay attention to what Betty Ross looked like. She is still quite pretty, but not delicate enough and looks a bit rough. However, there are very few Europeans and Americans who are very delicate. It is rare to see someone like Natasha Romanoff, especially after meeting Xia Yu. She has always maintained the peak of her appearance. Where's Clint? The captain asked. He's taking care of some tail in the back. Natasha Romanoff asked Betty Ross to sit down first and stood up to pour water. Tell me about the situation, Betty. Since you were able to call me, I'm sure Banner has already told you about the situation here. Xia Yu went straight to the point. Well, he came to see me secretly some time ago, and I found out. Then I planned to meet him. He was very inferior and afraid of hurting me, but I threatened him to stay by jumping off the building, so we were together a lot during this period, but I didn't know that we had been discovered by my father's people. Betty Ross was also very direct. She took a sip of water and continued, I just wanted him to stay with me. He said he had joined S.H.I.E.L.D., so I thought it was okay. Neither of us deliberately hid our whereabouts, so, you will save him, right? He can't stay in the hands of the military. They will keep using him for experiments. Betty Ross looked a little bit remorseful, and the captain comforted her. This is not your fault, Miss Ross, nor is it Banner's fault. We will definitely help you, don't worry. Ms. Ross, I don't mean anything else. It's just that Banner was taken away so easily. What I mean is that Hulk didn't come out to resist. Xia Yu asked puzzledly. He doesn't want to hurt anyone, and there are too many people there. My father threatened him, saying that if he transforms, the military will open fire to suppress him without hesitation. There are many innocent people in the city. Betty Ross's voice became smaller and smaller. She felt that her father's methods were a bit shameless. This routine looked very familiar, and everyone turned to look at Xia Yu involuntarily. Cough. Cough. Chapter 82. Xia Yu coughed twice to ease the embarrassment. It's okay. Do you know where he was taken? I'll bring him back now. I don't know where he was taken. Aren't you from S.H.I.E.L.D.? You should be able to find out, right? Betty Ross said. Xia Yu turned her eyes to Natasha Romanoff and Hawkeye. We can indeed find out where people are, but the key is how do we get them back, said Natasha Romanoff. Xia Yu was very confident. Find the place, I'll find the person and bring him back. I don't think it will be too difficult. Captain America waved Xia Yu off. We need a plan. It's definitely heavily guarded. Natasha Romanoff also said, I'm not questioning your ability. We can't go to war with the military directly. That will only make things worse. And you forgot what Nick said. The Avengers plan has not been approved. We can't just go out and rob people openly. Just watch them use Banner for experiments? At least S.H.I.E.L.D. should do something. If not, I'll just go and snatch him away. I wonder who can stop me. Xia Yu was a little anxious. You are too anxious, Xia. We are not saying we don't care. We just want to find the best way to solve the problem. Your way will only make things worse. Don't worry, we won't abandon Banner. Natasha Romanoff's last sentence was also said to Betty Ross. She felt a little strange. Xia Yu was a little too anxious. Xia Yu stopped talking. He was indeed anxious. He felt that this happened because of his arrival and the changes in some things. Otherwise, it would be abnormal if Loki brought the alien threat, the Hulk was born again, and the Avengers Alliance saved the world. At that time, no one would dare to touch them. Let's call Nick and ask him to ask the military for the person first. If that doesn't work, we can go and rescue them ourselves, the captain suggested. I'm afraid things won't be easy even if S.H.I.E.L.D. steps in. Last time, S.H.I.E.L.D. slapped the military in the face because of Tony's iron armor. Tony still holds the position of S.H.I.E.L.D. consultant, but Banner doesn't have it now. And according to the military, Hulk is the military's property. Hawkeye expressed his opinion. I understand. Normal communication doesn't work for us, and we're not in the right if we knock on their door directly. So what should we do? Shall we sit here together and pray to the gods? Xia Yu slammed the table and shouted. Calm down, Xia, we're just analyzing now, okay? The gods. Natasha Romanoff said halfway when she remembered something and turned to look at Thor. Everyone suddenly reacted and looked at Thor. Why are you all looking at me? I don't understand the relationships between so many departments on your Earth. I am only responsible for taking action. Thor felt uneasy when everyone was looking at him. Thor, do you have any identity in S.H.I.E.L.D.? Xia Yu asked. No, they just gave me an ID card and said he was your brother. Wasn't it you who gave it to me? Thor said. No, think about it, besides being my brother, what other identity do you have? Think about it, Xia Yu coaxed. Thor looked at everyone and said in a louder voice, I have changed that habit. I haven't spoken like that for a long time. Aren't you discussing how to save Banner? Why did you mention me? Look, Miss Ross has been here for quite some time, but she doesn't know you. Why don't you introduce yourself? Xia Yu continued. Thor looked confused and held out his hand to introduce himself. Hello, Miss Rose, I'm Thor. Betty Ross didn't understand what Xia Yu meant, so when she saw Thor extending his hand, she politely extended her hand and shook it. Hello, I'm Betty Ross. Thor, you didn't introduce yourself like that before. Where is your pride in being an Asgardian? Xia Yu didn't let Thor go. Thor was a little angry. You asked me to say this, I am Thor, son of Odin, Prince of Asgard. Bingo. Xia Yu snapped his fingers. Natasha Romanoff, I'll go find out where Banner was taken. Hawkeye, I'll go prepare the plane and leave in a moment. Xia Yu explained to Betty Ross and Thor, who were still in a daze, it would be troublesome and passive for S.H.I.E.L.D. to ask for the person directly, but they can't just knock on the door directly. That would be a provocation not only to the military, but also to the government. But Thor is different. He is an Asgardian, an alien. If the military feels that their dignity has been challenged, let them go to Asgard to find Odin. I am Thor of Asgard, not an alien. Thor complained. I understand, Thor. Now your believers need you to save them. Xia Yu patted Thor's shoulder and said. Nick Fury once said that nothing in the world could escape his notice. This statement may be an exaggeration, but in the eyes of S.H.I.E.L.D., there are really no secrets in North America. Without going through S.H.I.E.L.D.'s top management, Natasha Romanoff quickly found out the place where Banner was temporarily detained with her own network and connections. Captain, we have arrived at your territory. Banner is now in the basement of the Brooklyn Museum. This is a secret military base, surrounded by schools and residential areas. I guess General Ross is using this as a threat to get Banner to cooperate. Natasha Romanoff opened an electronic map on the table and said, "It's right here. I guess the military is building a cage or room that can hold Hulk, so we have plenty of time to rescue him. This place is very secretive, but it is in the city after all, so there won't be many heavy weapons. Thor just needs to rush in to rescue people. You have to be quick and don't let Banner get hurt and transform. Go in and fly out with Banner. We will pick you up in the air. Unless absolutely necessary, you have to act alone." Natasha Romanoff glanced at Xia Yu and said. Xia Yu scratched his head, a little embarrassed. "Let's go." Chapter 83. After 9/11, the military deployed a large number of emergency anti-terrorism forces in every important city, mainly air defense missiles, and they are almost spread across the basements of every park and museum, Natasha Romanoff explained to everyone on the plane. Hawkeye continued while flying the plane. "For example, our target this time, the Brooklyn Museum, has not only anti-aircraft defenses underground, but also some supporting reconnaissance and communication systems, such as radar, radio, etc. These are not important. What is important is that these bases were built temporarily back then. In order to conceal the fact that there were missiles under the people's feet, the government did not disclose the cost of this." "What does this have to do with our actions?" Xia Yu asked. "Definitely. A lot of secret construction and the fact that the cost could not be made public led to a shortage of military funds. Therefore, this secret base is actually divided into two connected parts. The first is the anti-aircraft missile defense part, which has a 20 cm reinforced steel plate on the outside. However, due to funding issues, the personnel office part is relatively weak." Natasha Romanoff took over again, "So once Thor goes in and locates Banner, he doesn't need to come out the same way. That would put Banner at great risk of transformation. All he needs to do is make a big hole in the ceiling to enter New York City's sewer system. Then, according to our instructions, he can just find a random exit with few people and lift the manhole cover to get out." "Why can't I just burst through the ground?" Thor asked. "Because if we fly away like that, we'll be too big a target and there's a chance we'll be exposed," said the captain. "And it could damage the natural gas pipeline, causing an explosion," Xia Yu continued. "Absolutely correct," Natasha Romanoff concluded, handing Thor a headset. "Put it on. In addition to being able to talk to us, there is also a positioning system here. Once you get to the sewer, just follow my instructions." Xia Yu was worried, so she asked Thor to repeat all the steps again. Then she nodded and turned to Betty Ross and said, "Don't worry, Miss Ross, we will definitely bring Banner out, and we won't hurt your father." "Bruce, why did you come back? I had given up tracking you." "You shouldn't have come back to find Betty," General Ross said to Bruce Banner in the underground base. Banner's expression was also complicated. "I just wanted to see her from a distance, but I didn't expect to be discovered. I wanted to leave her, but now I have changed my mind. She loves me, and I love her too. Nothing can separate us. What qualifications do you have to talk about love, especially with my daughter? You will hurt her, UBD." General Ross slammed the table angrily. He really loved his daughter. "I used to think so too. After what happened in New York last time, I even tried to commit suicide by swallowing a gun, but I couldn't do it." Hulk spat out the bullet again. "What could I do?" Banner's voice got louder. "Just stay away from here and don't come back. You know how dangerous you are." After General Ross yelled, he took a few breaths, calmed down and continued. "If you come back, don't leave again. The serum in Brinsky's body is not as stable as yours. Stay and do experiments. Help me perfect the super soldier project. Then I will give you a chance to study the serum that can heal yourself." Dr. Banner shook his head to refuse. He didn't want to say anything more. It was meaningless. "You have plenty of time to think about it. I will send you away from here in a few days. Don't blame me for not reminding you. If you are unwilling to help me, you will be locked in a cage for the rest of your life as an experimental subject." General Ross said, turned and walked out. "Keep an eye on him. As long as he doesn't leave this room, no matter what he does, if he makes any move or intention to leave this room, just shoot." General Ross ordered the guard at the door in a loud voice, deliberately for Banner to hear. Banner had no intention of escaping unless he turned into Hulk, but turning into Hulk and fighting the military would definitely hurt innocent people, and he would rather die than bring disaster again. On the other side, General Ross returned to his temporary office, lit a cigar and sighed deeply. Once upon a time, Bruce Banner was the scientist he most admired. Although General Ross deceived him with the radiation protection research project, he recognized his daughter's boyfriend in his heart. However, an accident occurred in the human experiment, and he would never let his daughter be with such a dangerous person. But after what happened last time, there has been a deep rift between him and his daughter. If he catches Banner back this time, his daughter will probably never pay attention to him again in this life. Forget it, it's his own fault for coming back again. The super soldier plan must go on. What we need to fight a war is soldiers, not the freak squad that Stark mentioned. As for my daughter, I can try to win her back slowly. It's impossible for a father and daughter to not talk to each other for the rest of their lives. General Ross took a deep breath of smoke, and in the smoke his face showed a little guilt, a little reluctance, and more of a crazy persistence. Bang! Suddenly, there was a sound of something exploding outside, followed by the screams and gunshots of soldiers. Day! Da 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 da! Damn, has he transformed again? General Ross thought Banner had turned into Hulk, and his heart was pounding. Although he had used threats to keep Banner, if he caused a big commotion in the city again this time, he would be in a very passive position. The last battle between Hulk and the evil monk had already brought him huge amounts of trouble. If there was another big commotion this time and he couldn't hand in a complete super soldier plan, his project would definitely be permanently stopped. This was one of the reasons why he finally decided to arrest Banner when he saw him coming back this time. The super soldier program has been delayed for too long. General Ross's mind was racing as he quickly ran out of the small temporary office. Before he could see what was happening, a hammer appeared in his sight, growing bigger and bigger until it occupied his entire field of vision. Bang! General Ross flew out and fell to the ground unconscious. Chapter 84. Banner heard the commotion outside, stood up and looked outside through the small window on the door of the room, just in time to see Thor knock General Ross out with a hammer. Banner was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He was afraid that he would be hit to death with a hammer. How could he be Betty's father? He might even be his father-in-law. Thor, don't hit dead man! Banner shouted at the door. When Thor heard Banner's voice, his eyes lit up and he immediately strode towards the room. It only took 5 or 6 seconds from the time Thor entered the door to the time Banner shouted. There were less than 20 soldiers in this place, so they were no match for Thor. He knocked out several of them, and the rest basically hid and did not come out or stood aside, not daring to move. The 2 soldiers guarding the gate saw the whole thing, watching Thor rushing around like a humanoid monster, not afraid of bullets. As Thor walked towards them, the 2 men looked at each other, threw their guns away in tacit understanding, and fell to the ground pretending to faint. Don't worry, I controlled myself and didn't use too much force. They told me to be gentle. Thor kicked the door open and said to Banner. Thor, hurry up, the alarm has just been triggered and someone is rushing to the entrance. Natasha Romanoff's voice came from the headset. Thor used a hammer to make a big hole in the ceiling without saying a word. Let's go this way. He hugged Banner and jumped up. For safety reasons, Natasha Romanoff directed Thor and Banner to cross half of Brooklyn through the sewers before emerging in a secluded place. In an abandoned factory, Banner and Thor climbed out of the sewer and saw a Quinjet parked nearby. Several people had already gotten off the plane and were waiting for them. As soon as Banner came out, Betty Ross, who had been waiting for a long time, went up to him and hugged him tightly. God, I'm so glad you made it out safely. Thor glanced at the 2 people hugging each other tightly, took a step forward and said to Xia Yu and the others, do you want to give me a hug too? I am a hero tonight. Xia Yu and the others quickly stepped back, looking disgusted. Thor, my dear brother, stay away from us. You smell worse than the toilet. You should fly back by yourself later to avoid dirtying the plane. Even Captain America, who has the halo of a saint, quietly shrank half a body length behind Hawkeye, trying to reduce his presence in front of Thor. Bruce, let's leave New York together, leave this country, and go anywhere, just the 2 of us. Betty Ross said to Banner affectionately. She didn't want to keep living in fear, but she was reluctant to leave Banner. Don't worry, Miss Ross, we will protect you and will not let Banner be taken away again. Captain America stood up again and persuaded. You're not safe anywhere, trust us, Betty. Natasha Romanoff also joined in the persuasion. But Banner was indecisive again. Betty, maybe your father is right. If I stay with you, it will only constantly hurt you. Bang! This time it was the crotch, this time it was really the crotch, this time it was definitely the crotch. Betty Ross attacked with hatred, and Banner fell to the ground with his body bent like a shrimp, holding his crotch tightly with both hands. He ignored the pain and quickly used breathing to lower his heart rate. But there was a sound of sucking in cold air between each breath, which sounded extremely strange. Betty Ross kneed them without hesitation, and everyone gasped in fear. The captain instantly took out his shield, Xia Yu put on his armor, and Thor raised his hammer. Seeing Banner lying on the ground and taking deep breaths without any other changes, he slowly relaxed his guard. I'm warning you for the last time, Bruce Banner. If you dare to leave my side for the first time, I will take you and jump off the Empire State Building with me. After saying that, he got on the plane without looking back. Is he okay? He seems to be seriously injured. Should we take him to the hospital? It's okay. Banner will heal all injuries once he transforms. It doesn't matter. Look, his face has turned purple. Do you want to carry him onto the plane? Everyone formed a circle around the fallen Banner and began to discuss quietly. Finally Hawkeye expressed his opinion, he will be fine, just ignore him for a while. Why? Thor asked curiously. Just now I saw Miss Ross's posture was very skillful. It was definitely not her first time. Banner may have gotten used to it. Hawkeye analyzed professionally. Everyone nodded in agreement, but they all looked at Banner on the ground with pity. What the hell is this, that his girlfriend is so skilled at pressing her knee against his crotch? Banner, who had recovered from his shock on the ground, slowly stretched out 2 fingers and said tremblingly, twice. If the United States has no secrets in the eyes of S.H.I.E.L.D., then New York, the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D., is transparent in the eyes of S.H.I.E.L.D. As soon as the few people got on the plane, Natasha Romanoff's phone rang. It's Nick. Natasha Romanoff said to everyone holding her phone. Let me answer it. Xia Yu took the phone. Nick, every time you look for someone, you either break into people's homes or do it in the middle of the night. Don't others get to rest? Xia Yu took the phone and got angry at Nick Fury. Even though Nick Fury had been in a place like S.H.I.E.L.D. for decades, he was stunned for several seconds by Xia Yu's words. This conversation was not right and it shouldn't be like this. There was no sound in Xia Yu's receiver for 3 full seconds. Just when Xia Yu was about to say hello again to confirm whether the line was still connected, huge amounts of sound suddenly erupted from the receiver. Xia Yu quickly moved the phone away from her ear. Damn it, you dare say you were sleeping, do you think I'm an idiot? I can hear the noise of flight over there even through the phone. Nick was extremely angry, and his voice was so loud that everyone could hear him. Xia Yu yelled back at a volume no less than Nick Fury's, why am I not sleeping? What flight? That's the noise coming from the air conditioner in my room. What on earth do you want to do with me in the middle of the night? What do you care whether I'm sleeping or on a plane? You still dare to ask me why I am looking for you? Thor, how did you break into someone else's base? Why was Banner discovered? Why was Banner allowed to go out at will? Why did you kidnap General Ross's daughter? Nick Fury felt like he was about to die of anger. He had just fallen asleep. Such a big thing happened. It would be easy to cover it up. If it couldn't be covered up, who knows how big a mess it would cause tomorrow. Do they really think the military has no face? Xia Yu touched her ears and lowered her voice, but still spoke in a strange voice. First, we asked Banner to come back to work together, not to monitor him. Second, I am not Betty Ross's nanny or guardian. They are both adult legal citizens with their own personal freedom. Third, Thor is from Asgard. You ask me what happened? He ran to the military base. Can you let the military negotiate with Asgard? Nick Fury fell silent for a while before he spoke. The military is not stupid, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is not omnipotent. General Ross will come knocking on our door sooner or later. This matter will not just end like that. Xia Yu was silent for a few seconds before he spoke word by word. The person is in our hands. The military has no reason to take him away from us by force. The one who broke into the base was Thor from Asgard. He has nothing to do with S.H.I.E.L.D. He is just Banner's personal friend. I will try my best to keep this matter secret, but next time something happens, be sure to notify me first. I will let Phil Coulson go back tomorrow. Nick Fury said and hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, everyone was silent for a long time, and Banner spoke first. Xia, why don't you let us go? Let's go to a place where no one can find us. This is not good for everyone. Xia Yu frowned and was about to curse, but the captain spoke first. Banner, you can't leave. We are the only ones in the world who will protect you. We can't compromise because of any pressure. We are a family, we are united together, and no one can take you two away from us. Everyone has their own personality traits. When these words come out of the captain's mouth, they sound particularly powerful and warm. Everyone looked at each other, and Natasha Romanoff extended her hand and placed it in the middle of everyone. Family, unite. Family, stick together. Family, stick together. Family, stick together. Family, stick together. Everyone stretched out a hand and put it together. Hawkeye, who was flying the plane, turned around and shouted, Family, unite as one. Thor, help me put a hand up there. Chapter 85. The next morning, Phil Coulson came in a hurry and whispered to Hawkeye and Natasha Romanoff. Xia Yu found it funny and said loudly, Phil Coulson, we all treat you as a friend, you don't have to be like this. Yesterday was an emergency, an accident. We will definitely notify you if there is anything in the future. Phil Coulson looked up and complained, I don't blame you, Xia, I just asked them to tell me first. Although I'm not here, I'm responsible after all. Nick called me yesterday and I didn't know what happened. Phil Coulson pointed at Hawkeye and Natasha Romanoff and continued, I understand you didn't pay attention, but these two people have been my colleagues for many years. They should have informed me, otherwise I would not know how to answer when the boss asked. Xia Yu laughed loudly. He probably took out his anger that Nick Fury got from being humiliated by him yesterday on Phil Coulson. Xia Yu walked over and patted Phil Coulson on the shoulder and said, Don't talk about the past anymore. Tell us about the cellist. Did you get on base? Phil Coulson's face fell immediately. I had carefully prepared a date, and I was confident that I could have S*X with her, but my boss called me away at the last minute. Now I don't know how to explain to him why I missed the date. Hawkeye then said, It's okay, Phil Coulson, as long as your girlfriend doesn't kneel you in the crotch. Everyone laughed, and Phil Coulson was confused. He didn't know what the joke was. How could a girlfriend put her knees against her crotch? Phil Coulson also came, and everyone except Tony was present again. Everyone returned to the same rhythm as before. Betty Ross couldn't go back to work either. It was said that General Ross was looking for her all over the world. But she doesn't care about work for the time being. The reunion with Banner made both of them understand the preciousness of lost and regained feelings. They can give up everything for each other. Xia Yu feels that lightning can flash in their eyes when they look at each other now. Perhaps due to Betty Ross's guidance, Banner began to pay more attention to the relationship between the two and soon found Xia Yu and made a request. Have you made up your mind? Xia Yu asked Banner. Yes, I can't hide from it. I have to face Hulk. I have to let him out and let him adapt to you, to this place, and to Betty. Only then can I integrate into life with peace of mind and be with Betty. Banner was very determined this time. Xia Yu nodded and went to call Thor and the captain over. The three of them studied it for a while and felt that it would not be a problem to use all their strength and cooperate with the hammer to quickly suppress Hulk, so they agreed with Banner's idea. The captain is the most active. If Hulk is released every day and can be kept under control, it will be of great benefit to their combat training. Everyone was ready, so they just did it. Captain Thor, Xia Yu, and two others took Banner to the large open space outside, while the others watched from a distance. As a result, Banner just transformed and punched Xia Yu into the sky, but it was just Xia Yu. To this, Hulk said, Liar, you said you often let Hulk come out, but it feels like Hulk hasn't come out for a long time. Xia Yu covered his head and felt that the punch was in vain, as if he had deceived his child. Hulk is very difficult to communicate with because he is always in a state of anger, but being difficult to communicate with does not mean that he cannot be communicated with. Especially under the threat of Xia Yu and the other two holding hammers, they reached an agreement to let him out 3 times a week, each time for 6 hours. Hulk is like a child, but he is not stupid. When he is not crazy, he can tell whether others have bad intentions towards him or not. He is just a child with great strength and a little inferiority complex. Xia Yu knew this when watching Thor, Ragnarok. It seems that his IQ is almost higher than Thor's. It's just that Hulk asks for food every time he comes out. He eats too much. He has almost eaten up all the food in Xia Yu's ring. For the first time, Xia Yu felt a sense of crisis of bankruptcy. Later, she remembered that the food in the base was supplied by Stark, and Xia Yu covered her mouth and laughed for a long time. On this day, Xia Yu was sitting on the steps at the entrance of the base. Hulk was sitting next to him and was learning Chinese with Xia Yu. That's right, ever since Xia Yu was punched by Hulk during a training and said, TMD, Hulk kept repeating this sentence, and he thought it was very cool, so he pestered Xia Yu to learn Chinese. Quantity Xia Yu, green fat, Chinese, Hulk, Thor is a noob Xia Yu, Thor is an idiot, Hulk, no, why is Thor still Thor, and Hulk is just green, fat. Xia Yu, because I'm too lazy to translate the name of the rookie. Hulk nodded, well, Thor is an idiot. Xia Yu also nodded, the pronunciation is very standard. Yes, Thor is an idiot. The two were having a great time asking and answering each other when suddenly there was a roar of vehicles outside. It sounded like more than just 1 or 2 cars. Xia Yu stood up and looked into the distance. He could see at least 20 or 30 cars with his naked eyes. There were military jeeps in front, and 7 or 8 tanks following behind. There were also some other vehicles that Xia Yu couldn't identify, but it was obvious at a glance that they were carriers of lethal weapons. Guys, come out, we are in trouble. Xia Yu shouted inside. Chapter 86. Xia Yu used his inner strength and everyone in the base ran out. In fact, there were only a few people in total. Tony was not there, and with Betty Ross and Phil Coulson, there were only 8 people. When they came out and saw the situation, Natasha Romanoff, Hawkeye and Phil Coulson's faces changed drastically, especially Phil Coulson, who muttered to himself, it's impossible. The military made such a big move, how could we not have heard anything at all? As if to deliberately slap Phil Coulson in the face, as soon as the words fell, 4 armed helicopters appeared in the distance. It's General Ross. Hawkeye said affirmatively. Xia Yu turned around and looked at Hawkeye in surprise. Clint, what kind of eyes do you have? I can't see the people inside even with my inner strength. Is this impossible? Hawkeye gave Xia Yu a disdainful look. Do you still need to look? Who else could it be besides him? Xia Yu wanted to slap himself hard for asking too much. Seeing the military coming in such a big force, the people who had just finished training quickly armed themselves. Xia Yu also changed into battle armor, gently patted Hulk's arm and said, don't be impulsive, or I'll push you to the ground, and I'll fight you if I say I want to. Hulk let out a reluctant roar, but nodded obediently. You go negotiate with them and tell Xia Yu and the others not to act impulsively. I will contact the military right away. Something is wrong. Our people haven't received any news at all. You must control the situation. Nick Fury hung up the phone with Phil Coulson. Don't be nervous, guys. I'll go negotiate with them. Don't make the atmosphere too awkward. Phil Coulson said to Xia Yu and the others as he walked out. A stream of military vehicles didn't follow the road at all, but drove directly onto the lawn and stopped about 20 meters away from the gate. Fully armed soldiers got off the vehicles. Xia Yu took a rough look and saw that there were at least 100 people, and there were tanks and other offensive weapons lined up in the back. All the guns were pointed at the people in front of the base. Such a big event was easily concealed from S.H.I.E.L.D. It seems that Nick Fury's confidentiality work was not good enough. It is not something that General Ross can do to hide it from Nick Fury. It seems that someone else has some shameful ideas. Xia Yu looked up and saw that the leading helicopter was slowly preparing to land. You seem quite impressive, but if you want to show off, you've come to the wrong place. Xia Yu quickly took 2 steps forward, twisted and turned, and slapped the soldier in front of him 10 times in one breath. More than a dozen golden oriental dragons roared out, and the soldiers lined up in front were startled. When had they ever seen such a thing? Was it magic or something else? They all stepped back a few steps, and the formation was in chaos. Some even tripped over the people around them in their panic. The helicopter pilot who was about to descend from the sky had a trembling hand and involuntarily pulled up a little. The visual effect seen by the people below was that this helicopter, which was obviously carrying a big shot, was about to slowly descend, but suddenly shuddered and instantly rose several meters. Xia Yu even saw General Ross on the helicopter almost hit his head due to a slight instability. Xia Yu used the 18 dragon subduing palms to blast more than a dozen holes more than 2 meters deep in the lawn in front. The formation of the fully armed soldiers was too chaotic, and General Ross hit his head again. The impressive performance at the beginning was turned into a joke by Xia Yu in one move. Without waiting for the other party to react, Xia Yu took a step forward and used his inner strength to shock the whole audience. Who are you who trespassed into private territory? I now have the right to kill you on the spot. Xia Yu was very reckless, but the next sentence he said was quite smart. Who knows who you are? Does wearing a military uniform make you a soldier? Have you shown your ID? Everyone in the Avengers Alliance also followed Xia Yu and took a step forward. Captain America picked up the shield with his backhand. Thor picked up his hammer. Natasha Romanoff pointed both guns forward. Hawkeye draws his bow and nods his arrow. Hulk, who? 6 people frightened a fully armed reinforced company and made it retreat several steps again. These soldiers are also in a difficult situation. They were given strict orders before they arrived that they must not open fire without orders under any circumstances. Among this group of people there are huge monsters, some of which can release explosive dragons. They cannot open fire unless they retreat and wait for death. General Ross knew that he couldn't show off today, so he winked at the adjutant next to him. The adjutant picked up a microphone on the plane that was connected to the loudspeaker below and said, "We are from the Ministry of Defense. We need your help in investigating something." Xia Yu didn't give them any face at all. "We didn't receive any notice, and you didn't show any ID. No matter who you are trespassing on private territory. I give you 1 minute to get out immediately. We have the credentials and also the document signed jointly by the Department of Defense and the New York Attorney General. I'll go down and show them to you." The adjutant shouted again. "Don't come down. There are so many of you and so many guns. We are all old people, women, and children. What if you launch a sneak attack? How do I know you are not a terrorist?" Xia Yu pointed at Natasha Romanoff, Thor, and Captain America respectively. "Get your documents ready and leave our place. We will arrange for someone to go out and receive you. The 1-minute countdown starts now, otherwise." Xia Yu winked at Thor. Thor was very smart this time. He raised his hammer and summoned a bolt of lightning that brushed the side of the helicopter and hit the ground. The helicopter pilot was almost scared to death and quickly controlled the plane to hide behind him. Roar! Hulk roared to the sky again. He recognized the man wearing these clothes and he had shot him. This adjutant really wanted to shoot Xia Yu to death. "You call this an old man and a child?" The situation was no one was strong, so he could only turn around and ask General Ross, "What should we do now?" General Ross wanted to pull out his gun and shoot the helicopter pilot to death, but what else could he do since he had already retreated? "Get out!" General Ross was also angry, but since the other party was pretending to be so ignorant, there was nothing he could do. What if he really came up and I got beaten up and got beaten for nothing? I was accused of trespassing on private property without showing my ID. Just like that, a group of people got on the bus and left much faster than when they came. Phil Coulson quickly followed them out and negotiated with someone. It must be him, as he was very knowledgeable. Chapter 87. This time General Ross came in by car, with 4 helicopters following far behind. The soldiers did not get out of the car, and Xia Yu greeted them from a distance. "Phil Coulson, why don't you introduce which military general is here? The people I admire most in my life are soldiers." "Ha ha ha." Xia Yu greeted him with a laugh. The smile on her face was so sincere that General Ross thought what he had just experienced was an illusion. Even Phil Coulson, a veteran who had been in the intelligence organization for half his life, couldn't keep up with Xia Yu's change of expression. He was stunned for a moment before he reacted and said, "This is General Ross from the Ministry of Defense." "General Ross, this is our shield consultant, Xia Yu." General Ross is a well-known iron-fisted representative of the military. He was just caught by Xia Yu for breaking in illegally and made a fuss about it. In addition, Banner and Betty were taken away by them, and he was hit by Thor with a hammer. How could he give Xia Yu a good face? Humph! General Ross wanted to say something harsh, but before he could say it he remembered that his show of authority had been thwarted. What was the point of saying anything harsh? He could only snort and walk away. The military has always done things by arresting people first and then talking about reason. Who cares whether you have a government background or not? Anyway, they have the bigger fists, so they arrest people first and talk about it later. It has always been this way and we are used to it. As a result, this time Xia Yu and his men have much bigger fists than you, so you suffered a loss. Xia Yu pointed at General Ross and Phil Coulson and said, "Look at this guy, How can he be so rude and not even have basic courtesy? I was just about to shake his hand. Phil Coulson looked at Xia Yu's serious expression and was completely speechless. How did you treat him just now? You almost shot him down by a helicopter. Who should be polite to you? Given General Ross's status, since he came in like that, he must have sat down on the main seat before starting to talk business. Well, before he even reached the door, Hulk saw him blocking the door with a loud roar, staring straight at General Ross, as if he was going to kill him if he took another step forward. If it were someone else, no matter how strong their fighting ability was, everyone had to work in a country and a system. Even if they wanted to kill you, they would always give you some face. But who can guarantee that Hulk wouldn't take action? General Ross looked at the Avengers Alliance members next to him, but they all turned their heads and looked elsewhere. Only Betty Ross met his gaze with a hint of hatred. His daughter couldn't say anything, so General Ross could only stop and turn around to ask Phil Coulson, Agent Phil Coulson, what does this mean? Is this how you, S.H.I.E.L.D., welcome guests? Without waiting for Phil Coulson to answer, Xia Yu trotted forward and said, General Ross, this Hulk is still young and doesn't know much. Don't bother with him. But the place is being renovated now. There's a lot of dust and the air quality is seriously exceeded. For your health, let's not go in. Let's talk here if we have anything to say. Xia Yu is lying with open eyes. Regardless of whether Hulk allows it or not, the entire first floor has huge amounts of floor-to-ceiling windows and decorations. Do you think others are blind? You. General Ross's face was almost purple with anger, and he turned to look at Phil Coulson. Even the seemingly honest agent Phil Coulson looked away, pretending not to see his eyes. Phil Coulson was not stupid. Xia Yu clearly didn't allow you to go in, and Hulk was blocking it, so he didn't dare to go. General Ross took a deep breath and said, Okay, very good. It's best to handle things impartially. We need to find someone from the Ministry of Defense. General Ross was interrupted by Xia Yu before he could finish his words. It must be handled impartially. You must follow the legal procedures. I will fully cooperate with you. However, you just broke in with your men and cars. I can forgive your negligence, but you must pay for the damage to the lawn. Enough, what do you mean, when did I ruin your lawn? General Ross couldn't control himself and roared. Xia Yu suddenly dodged in front of General Ross, and one of his fingers almost poked General Ross's face. Are you blind? Don't you see all those big holes over there? They were still fine when I got up in the morning. If it wasn't you who broke them, who else could it be? You didn't take such a long road, but had to come in through the lawn. Don't think I dare not sue you just because you are a general. Pay the money first. Xia Yu asked questions in rapid succession, then ran to the front and pointed at the grass that was damaged by his 18 dragon subduing palms and said, Tisk tisk tisk, look at the grass you made. You walk on the grass instead of on the road. Is this the quality of your military personnel in the Ministry of Defense? Is our property illegal? Is it not protected by the Constitution of the United States of America? It was obviously you who destroyed the lawn. Don't change the subject here. I came here today. General Ross had already started to breathe heavily. Xia Yu interrupted him again, I broke it myself. We don't have weapons of mass destruction or excavators here. You don't want to pay for it, right? Okay, Natasha Romanoff, call the reporters. I think they are very interested in reporting how the military trespassed into private property and destroyed citizens' property. General Ross had never encountered such a thing in his life. What was wrong with this world? Xia Yu's antics completely disrupted his plans and rhythm. But Xia Yu had a firm grasp on his weak spot. From the initial trespassing to the current phone calls to reporters, everything was completely beyond his expectations, but extremely effective. Xia Yu pointed at Hulk and said, I know why you are here, but let's be fair, let's settle this account first. You have the documents and the order, and I will definitely cooperate with you. General Ross stretched out his right hand and grasped his adjutant's shoulder tightly. His fingers felt like they were about to dig into his flesh. After a long while, he opened his mouth and said word by word, let's settle the compensation with them. How much money they want? We'll give it to them. Natasha Romanoff quickly stepped forward to meet the adjutant, assessed the extent of the damage to the lawn, and estimated a price. Xia Yu also interrupted, Natasha Romanoff, Tony Stark buys the best of everything. It's correct to calculate according to the highest market price. There's no need to save money for them. The military is rich as hell. General Ross clenched his fists so hard that his nails almost dug into his flesh. He thought to himself, I'll give you the money and then take the people away and see how you guys protect them. After the settlement was finally settled, the adjutant wrote a check and Natasha Romanoff nodded to Xia Yu and General Ross. General Ross then unclenched his fist and said, we also paid for the lawn. Can we talk business now? Xia Yu shrugged, made a very innocent expression and said, I just want to finish the business quickly. We are all very busy and don't have time to waste time with you. It's true that we have paid for the lawn, but the road has also been damaged by your tanks, so you should also pay for it. Phil Coulson couldn't bear to watch it anymore, and thought it was enough, so he tried to persuade Xia Yu. Xia, you remembered it wrong, the road is not damaged at all. Xia Yu smiled, stretched out his left hand and pointed to the road ahead. Look, you said it was not broken, but there is a big hole. After saying that, Xia Yu quickly clapped his right hand. Boom! A large hole about 1 meter deep was blown out on the road. The whole audience was stunned, especially the military personnel. They have always been unreasonable with others. Who would dare to be unreasonable with them? Moreover, this is not just unreasonable, this is simply blackmail. Xia Yu taught the military a good lesson today, what it means to be unreasonable and what it means to lie with open eyes. Chapter 88. Xia Yu. General Ross could no longer control his anger. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Xia Yu's neck, dragged Xia Yu in front of him, and said to Xia Yu face to face, do you want to start a war? Hey? Do you want to start a war? Xia Yu waved his hand behind him, signaling the Avengers Alliance to calm down, and answered provocatively, do you dare? I don't care how many of you want to come and see our strength today. With so few people like you, if you want to see how strong we are, you'd better bring the entire Ministry of Defense over and start a war? If your people dare to move, do you believe that I will let Thor alone wipe you all out and then go back to Asgard? Xia Yu took General Ross's hand off her neck and whispered to him, do you think the military will go to war with Asgard for you guys? Or, do you think you can find where Asgard is? I said, follow the legal process, I will cooperate with you. You want to show off here, but you can't. General Ross was so angry that he suddenly raised his right hand. Everyone knew that this was a signal to prepare for an attack. As long as he waved his hand forward, today would be a fight to the death. There was a terrible silence in the room. No one spoke, and the only sound left was General Ross's heavy breathing. Natasha Romanoff came up and gently patted Xia Yu's palm, asking him to stop making a fuss. Xia Yu gave her a reassuring look. After a long while, General Ross slowly put his hand down and said, okay, I hope you can remember what you said and give me the money. This time there was no negotiation and the adjutant directly wrote out a check. Xia Yu took the check and saw the string of zeros on it. He whistled happily. The military was indeed very rich. He smiled brightly again and asked, Dear General, you brought so many people here today. Is there anything I can help you with? General Ross resisted the urge to draw his gun and smash Xia Yu's face, and said expressionlessly, an important scientific researcher has defected from our Ministry of Defense, Bruce Banner, and I want to take him away. Xia Yu's smile remained unchanged. General, I think this must be a misunderstanding. We are all government employees here, including the Prince of Asgard from outer space and your daughter. How could this be a defected researcher? How about you send soldiers in to search? The adjutant pointed at Hulk and was about to speak when Xia Yu held his arm down. Don't point randomly, that's Hulk, a Green Titan, a follower of His Majesty Thor of Asgard. He's very strong and has a bad temper. It would be bad if he accidentally hurts you. Nonsense, this is obviously. The adjutant was interrupted again. You are clearly mistaken. There is no such person as Bruce Banner here. Xia Yu was clearly playing dirty. I'm warning you, kid, stop pretending. Do you really think we're unprepared when we come here to arrest people, or to capture a big green monster like Hulk? General Ross waved his hand, and 8 small vans came out from behind. Each of the 8 vehicles was more than 10 meters apart, forming a semicircle, which seemed to surround the entire base. After stopping, the cargo boxes at the back opened automatically, revealing something like a loudspeaker inside. Xia, these are ultrasonic weapons. General Ross ordered them from Stark Industries a few years ago. Activating 2 of them together is enough to make Hulk unable to move, or even seriously injure him and send him back to Banner. Natasha Romanoff looked solemn after seeing those sonic weapons. S.H.I.E.L.D's people are really well informed. General Ross glanced at Natasha Romanoff, then said to Xia Yu, the soldiers inside are on full alert. It won't take even a second to activate those things. Are you sure that all of you can escape unscathed? Xia Yu frowned, your daughter is in here. It's because of my daughter that I didn't launch a direct attack. Maybe you're right, Thor alone can destroy us, but are you sure you can only have a few people left? I must take Bruce Banner away today. Not to mention my daughter, even if the president comes, he can't save him today. General Ross said fiercely. Xia Yu was silent. General Ross might not dare to open fire first, but now it was clear that the situation was exposed. If he continued to make trouble, it would be resisting arrest. The current situation is that whoever holds the person is right. If the person is in their own hands, they can deny whatever they say. At most, they can find another place for Banner to stay for a while. If the person falls into the hands of the military, then they are right no matter what they say, but the person must not be handed over. If you hand him over now, he will definitely not be able to come back. But let's fight, those sonic weapons have a too large coverage area. We cannot afford any casualties, this battle will be difficult to fight. Xia Yu stared at General Ross intently. The best chance was to directly control General Ross, but it was difficult for everyone to explain. He didn't care, but what about so many people here who were in the government and lived in this country? General Ross seemed to see what Xia Yu was thinking, taking me hostage is a good idea, but you will all become wanted criminals. Maybe Mr. Thor won't care, but what about you? Boy, you've taken advantage of me enough today, hand me over. Damn Tony Stark! Xia Yu cursed under his breath. General Ross felt that he had won the game. Tony Stark is indeed a damned person, but it must be said that he is indeed a weapons genius. Xia, we can't compromise. We can't make friends. No matter what, we must unite. This choice was too difficult to make, and the captain came out first to support Xia Yu. This is also Captain America's consistent philosophy, no compromise, unity, and sharing the responsibility, no matter whether the result is good or bad. Xia Yu's eyes gleamed, then they could only capture General Ross, and everyone left together. Xia Yu gave Phil Coulson an apologetic look and was about to take action. Whoosh! Whoosh! Several miniature missiles flew down from the sky, and each one accurately hit the big speaker of the ultrasonic weapon. Bang! 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 The explosion wasn't big, and the sound wasn't loud either, but we could see that all the ultrasonic weapons were destroyed and they definitely couldn't be used anymore. Xia Yu showed ecstasy on his face. I said that robbers nowadays are so fully armed? With such good equipment, you should go robbing banks. Why are you coming to Stark's warehouse? As the voice was spoken, a red and yellow steel armor swung half a circle from the sky and landed in front of Xia Yu and others. As soon as Tony Stark landed, he pointed his hands at the army in front of him. His unique cynical voice came from the armor, listen, people in front, you are now surrounded by me. Put down your weapons and surrender immediately. I will plead for you in court in the future. Why did Tony rush back so timely? As soon as General Ross and his men arrived, Jarvis had already reported the situation to Tony. Tony even knew clearly about Xia Yu's crazy and stupid behavior. Who knew that General Ross would bring so many ultrasonic weapons? If they fight, there will definitely be casualties. If they don't fight, they can't watch Banner being taken away. Then the only way left is to hold Ross hostage. Xia Yu can think of it, and Tony can think of it too, but there is no need to do so unless it is absolutely necessary. Tony arrived in time and simply continued to act crazy according to the script left by Xia Yu. As long as they destroyed those sonic weapons, they would not be able to take this person away today. As for the future, it would definitely be a matter of wrangling among all parties. Oh, no one raised their hands to surrender. It seems that if Iron Man doesn't show his power, you think I'm a Lego brick, right? The laser cannon in Tony Stark's hand began to light up gradually. Chapter 89. Stark, that's enough, General Ross yelled. Oh, General Ross, why are you here too? Are you also held hostage by terrorists? Sorry, my helmet is not made well and I can't see clearly. Tony stretched out a finger and tapped his helmet and said. Then his tone changed and he continued, tell me who dares to hold you hostage on American soil and who is the son of ABCH, who is the leader of this gang, and I will help you catch him. Put aside your poor acting skills, Stark. This matter is not over yet. Bruce, you can't run away. Let's go. General Ross gritted his teeth in hatred. Tony didn't take it seriously and said with a grin, I'll pay attention to this problem next time. I just met a Hollywood actor named Robert Downey. He's ugly, but he's a good actor. I'll ask him for advice. General Ross walked forward without looking back. Just as he reached the jeep and raised his leg to get in, Tony Stark's voice came again. Damn it, Mylon, I'll send you a bill, I know where your office is. General Ross stumbled and almost hit his head on the seat. The adjutant next to him actually explained loudly, we've already given the check, Stark. Shut up and go away. Do you really know an actor named Robert Downey? Xia Yu asked Tony. Yes, at a cocktail party, he and a director planned to make a movie with me. He would play Iron Man, and they asked me to invest. Why are you asking this? Do you know him? Tony asked Xia Yu. Oh, just asking, did you promise him? Xia Yu asked. No, he's too ugly and has a bad reputation. How dare he want to play me? Nice job, bro. General Ross temporarily withdrew. Xia Yu was worried about Banner's safety and asked if they should move to another place. Tony Stark waved his hand and said, no need. As long as they don't catch anyone openly, I don't think anyone would dare to come to my place to arrest people. This was an accident and it won't happen again. Nearly 1/10 of the Senate members are allies of Stark Industries. This kind of thing will not happen again. This time they just caught me off guard while I was away. Xia Yu had the urge to kneel down in admiration. Stark perfectly explained to him what the power of capital is in capitalist countries. This was not to mention the connections left by Tony Stark's father, who was one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. The truly arrogant Tony, Xia Yu silently gave Tony a nickname in her heart. The newly completed Stark building in New York. Tony Stark was bragging in front of Xia Yu and the others. In the past, when people talked about New York, they would talk about Times Square, Wall Street, the Empire State Building, etc. But everyone, after today, the first thing people think of when they mention New York is the Stark Building. Tony opened his arms and continued, this will be the brightest landmark in New York and a benchmark for clean energy around the world. All the energy for this building will be self-sufficient through the reactor. Do you know what this represents? It represents the birth of new energy and that oil is no longer an indispensable energy source. This is an invention that will change the world, and you, the luckiest people in the world, will soon witness the moment when the Stark building lights up. Cheer. Oh, come on, you're so narcissistic, Stark. Everyone complained about Tony Stark's narcissistic behavior. You are jealous. Wait a moment, I want to light up this last name that changed the world. Tony said and turned to fly away. He was going to connect the submarine cable. Tony's invention is truly amazing. It can bring changes to the world, changes for the better. He will win the Nobel Prize. Banner said as he watched Tony fly away. To be honest, he was a little envious. The greatest achievement of a scientist is to change the world through his inventions and leave a legacy for posterity, rather than turning himself into an all-powerful green monster. Does the wonderful change you mentioned include the fact that most of the rich people in the Middle East will become paupers? Xia Yu argued. In fact, you can study how to utilize the energy of the universe. For example, Asgard utilizes the energy of the universe to float in space, using certain magic circles. Thor said it simply, but he actually didn't know how to do it. It sounds like some kind of magic engine, Hawkeye described it aptly. How is it? Isn't it spectacular? Tony's voice rang out in the room. Everyone turned to look and saw that the huge light box that was half exposed on the passage outside had lit up. Pepper ran to the computer, looked at the display on it and said, it's running stably, Tony, you can come back. It's definitely stable. This is a project I personally participated in. Get ready to open the champagne. I'm here. As soon as he finished speaking, Tony Stark had already landed steadily on the platform outside. Xia Yu's arrival made Tony's armor research a little faster than in the movie. In the movie, Tony was still wearing Mark 6 at that time, and it was not until the final battle of the Avengers Alliance that he wore Mark 7, which was still unstable. But now the Mark 7 has completely passed the experimental stage and is quite complete, which means that Tony Stark has left the period where he needs mechanical assistance to put on and take off his armor, except for the Mark 5 briefcase, which has relatively weak firepower and defense. Everyone, let's open the champagne and celebrate. Tony said after coming out of the armor. Mr. Stark, Agent Phil Coulson is calling. Jarvis said. Xia Yu already knew what was going on. Loki had arrived, and the Avengers alliance he had been looking forward to for a long time had finally begun. Phil Coulson, where have you been today? We're opening champagne, and you still have time to come over. Tony answered the phone. I'm already downstairs. Something happened, Stark. Is everyone still here? Something big has happened. Hey, Thor, your brother Loki has come to Earth. The author has something to say. The day before yesterday or something, I asked for a good review in the main text, and then received a 1-star bad review. It doesn't matter. If you think my writing is not good, you can scold me, but the reason they gave me was why they traveled to Marvel instead of returning to China. Isn't there a disaster in their own country? Today they asked me why I revolve around the plot again? WTF. Chapter 90. Xia Yu's first reaction was to glance at Hawkeye, wondering which unlucky guy was controlled this time. Phil Coulson had just finished speaking when he came out of the elevator. Thor ran up and grabbed Phil Coulson's shoulders and asked, "You said Loki? That's impossible. He's dead." Phil Coulson took out a computer and said, "See for yourself how he introduced himself. He entered S.H.I.E.L.D., controlled several of our colleagues, and stole the Tesseract." Natasha Romanoff took the computer over, and Thor asked Phil Coulson again, "The Tesseract is in your hands? My father left it on Earth more than 1,000 years ago. This is not a power you can control." Xia Yu said to Thor, "Don't worry about this for now, come and take a look first, and we can talk about other things later." After everyone watched the video, Thor muttered, "I have to contact Heimdall." Thor brought back news from Asgard that not only was Loki not dead, he had also reached a cooperation with the Chitauri to attack the Earth together, and the Chitauri army was already gathering and preparing. Thor originally wanted Heimdall to check Loki's current whereabouts, but Heimdall told him that Loki must have something on his body that blocked his life fluctuations, which might be the Tesseract, and Heimdall could not search one by one among the billions of people on Earth. With the threat of war from alien armies, things have escalated to a new level. Phil Coulson hurried away and said that a helicopter would be sent tomorrow to pick everyone up to their combat command center. Tony and Banner read S.H.I.E.L.D.'s research data on Tesseract and found that Tesseract would continuously emit trace amounts of gamma rays. Tony and Banner immediately began to design a plan on how to search for Tesseract. Pepper was supposed to go on a business trip to Washington the next day, but now seeing that Tony Stark had important things to do, she decided to leave tonight. Xia Yu had an idea, and said to Banner and Betty Ross, "Banner, let Miss Ross go to Washington with Pepper, either to relax, travel, or to help Pepper. It might be dangerous for her to follow us." Betty Ross was still sensible at the critical moment. If something really happened, she would only be a burden if she stayed, so she nodded and followed Pepper. The next morning, everyone took a helicopter to the huge deck of an aircraft carrier at sea. This was Xia Yu's first time on board an aircraft carrier. He knew that this was actually a helicarrier, which could not only fly, but also achieve physical stealth with a reflective back panel. Several people walked around the deck and saw many people fixing the planes and trailers on the deck with tools. Natasha Romanoff said, "Let's go in, everyone. It will be unsuitable to breathe here soon." "Are we going to dive to the bottom of the ocean?" Banner asked. Hawkeye smiled and said, "You'll know if you go to the deck." Everyone ran to the edge of the deck. At this time, the aircraft carrier had begun to rise, and 4 huge amounts of propellers were rising from the sea level with a large amount of sea water. Xia Yu had originally seen it in a movie, but it was far less shocking than what she saw in real life. Such huge amounts of a mothership rising into the sky had a powerful visual impact. Xia Yu patted Tony Stark's arm and said, "Tony, I think you should change your yacht. It is not suitable for people to stand on the deck when the mothership is launched." Except for Xia Yu and Thor, even the captain may not be able to stand steadily. After watching for a while, everyone quickly followed Hawkeye and Natasha Romanoff into the bridge. The bridge is the control room of the entire helicarrier and also Nick Fury's command room. There are no less than 100 computers and staff densely distributed inside. Xia Yu looked up and saw a circle of computers and staff around the second floor. The place where Nick Fury is commanding is exactly the same as in the movie, with touch-screen displays on both sides of a platform and Nick Fury standing in the middle. Regardless of whether it is convenient or not, the effect of showing off is absolutely first class, and it is also quite consistent with Nick Fury's personality of liking to show his back to people. Behind Nick Fury's platform was a conference table. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Nick Fury turned and walked towards the conference table, motioning for everyone to sit down. "There's someone playing games over there. I saw it." "Yes, it's you, that young man." Tony noticed at a glance that someone was slacking off and playing games. It's no wonder that being a CEO is different in this regard. "Nick, how do you usually look at the screen on the other side?" Tony walked up to Nick Fury's platform like a curious baby and covered one of his eyes with his hand. "Turn around and look." A female agent next to the platform said lightly. Xia Yu recognized at a glance that this was Maria Hill agent, Nick Fury's most trusted agent, and a level 9 agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. After the temporary disbandment of S.H.I.E.L.D. in Captain America 2, she joined the Avengers and took on some logistical support work. "That's really inconvenient," Tony said, turned around and left the platform, placing a small round metal under the screen. "This thing will allow Jarvis to crack and invade S.H.I.E.L.D.'s server." Everyone agreed on this last night. After Tony and Banner studied S.H.I.E.L.D.'s research data on Tesseract, they did not believe S.H.I.E.L.D.'s claim that the research on Tesseract was for energy. They suspected that S.H.I.E.L.D. was using Tesseract to manufacture lethal weapons. "Okay Stark, now that everyone is here, come over for the meeting," Nick Fury said to Tony. "First of all, I want to congratulate everyone. In view of the upcoming threat of war, I convinced the World Security Council last night to formally establish a crisis response team. This means that the Avengers are now completely legal," Nick Fury said. Xia Yu curled her lips when she heard this. "We don't care about this at all, let's talk about Loki. He has an army, the Chitauri. They don't belong to Asgard or any planet. They choose to cooperate with Loki. I think the condition is the Tesseract," said Thor. Banner continued, "So his purpose is to open the space portal. He needs to teleport an army, so the space gate must open stably. He needs metal to stabilize it so that the portal will not collapse like the one when he came. In addition, according to the needs of teleporting a team of troops, the portal needs to become larger and last longer," Tony Stark said. "He also needs a high-density energy power source to activate the Rubik's Cube. In theory, he needs to heat the Rubik's Cube to at least 100 million degrees Fahrenheit, Banner said. "The most important thing now is to find Loki first. We have matched him through cameras all over the world, including mobile phones, laptops, public cameras, etc. Dr. Banner, you and Stark are responsible for tracking the Tesseract. Is there any problem?" Nick Fury said. "I need as many spectrometers as possible. I'll call all the labs, put them on the roof, and calibrate them all to gamma rays. I'll set up a tracking algorithm to identify the source, which will eliminate most of them, help us narrow the scope, and find us a place to work," Banner said. "Loki has set up a temporary base somewhere underground, and Dr. Selvig is helping Loki build the equipment to activate the Tesseract. Where can I find these things?" Loki asked a white man in combat uniform next to him. If Xia Yu was here, he would definitely recognize him. This man is Brock Rumlow from the S.H.I.E.L.D. Task Force. He is a member of Hydra and the famous villain Crossbones in the comics. "I know which lab has it, but I need you to help me get their attention, and it would be best if you put on a show," said Brock Rumlow. "Just as I thought." Loki smiled. The way things have developed so far is very different from what was in the movie. Even though the plot has a strong inertia, many details can still deviate greatly. Xia Yu knows all of this. But what he didn't know was that this time the enemies weren't just Loki and the Chitauri. Many people think that the protagonist is too weak, but in fact he is already very strong. If the protagonist is invincible at the same time, then the villain should also be strengthened, and the heroes of the Avengers Alliance will become supporting roles, and it will become an invincible and exciting story. It is actually easier to write that way. As a routine, 20 chapters can be changed into 400 chapters, but there is no need to write about the Avengers Alliance. Chapter 91. In Stuttgart, Germany, a small square was densely packed with people kneeling. 4 phantom duplications of Loki stood around the crowd, wearing armor and holding scepters in their hands. It was obvious that he was holding these people hostage. "You are born this way. This is a truth that humans have not yet revealed. The temptation of freedom has deprived you of your happiness." Loki's real body was walking slowly among the crowd, talking freely. It can be seen that he enjoys the feeling of being superior to others while everyone is kneeling. Whoosh! Bang! There was a tearing air sound, and a hammer flew over and hit Loki right on the mouth while he was talking. Loki fell on his back, his real body was attacked and fell to the ground. The phantoms around him automatically dissipated, and the people kneeling on the ground fled in all directions. "You're here so quickly, my brother." Loki, who had fallen to the ground, calmly wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth. Loki looked at Thor, who was walking towards him slowly, with a smile on his face, as if he wanted to say hello to Thor, but he suddenly swung the scepter in his hand forward and shot a laser at Thor. Unfortunately, Captain America jumped down from the air and blocked the laser with a shield, and the laser bounced back and hit Loki himself. Loki fell backwards again, but this time it was not the end. Immediately afterwards, Iron Man's laser cannon and Xia Yu's 18 dragon subduing palms came from the air. Loki was like a discarded plastic bag on the ground, being hit by a group of children with sticks, and was knocked back and forth several times. Tony landed and stood parallel to Captain Thor. Xia Yu landed directly in front of Loki, stretched out his right hand and took the hammer from Thor's hand. Under Loki's horrified eyes, the hammer raised high in his right hand fell hard on Loki's head. Bang! Let you run around the earth to cause trouble. Bang! Let you collude with the Chitauri army. Bang! You'll take the Tesseract. The hammer rose and fell quickly in Xia Yu's hand, crackling like raindrops and hitting the head, body, thighs, and other parts of the body. There were also curses from Xia Yu in the middle, and a kick or two from time to time. What's wrong? Does Xia have a grudge against this guy? Tony looked left and right at the captain and Thor on both sides. The captain shook his head, he was also confused. Thor turned his face away silently, because this brought back some not so nice memories. What's wrong with you, Thor? Do you seem to be recalling something unhappy? Tony asked. That's enough, Xia, we should take him away, stop fighting. The captain came up to stop Xia Yu. Let you not learn. Good. Xia Yu kicked him several more times before stopping when the captain stopped him. He turned around and said to the captain and Tony, Odin once asked me to educate his son if he was disobedient. It would be fine as long as I didn't beat him to death. Thor covered his face when he heard this, it was too embarrassing. Tony and the captain suddenly realized and looked at Thor with understanding eyes. Loki, who was lying on the ground with his mind obviously blank, was locked up and taken on the plane. There was an aerial cage specially prepared for this guy on the helicarrier. Loki is no longer like in the movies, where he would gracefully sit on the ground and surrender when captured, and he could even chat with Iron Man, Captain America, and others on the plane. This time, Xia Yu threw him roughly into the corner and kicked him hard. Although he had the physique of a god, he was beaten black and blue by Xia Yu's hammer and looked extremely miserable. Loki remained silent in the corner. He was scared of being beaten and was afraid that Xia Yu would beat him as soon as he opened his mouth. While he was silent, he fell into deep self-doubt. Who is this guy? I have seen him in Asgard. Why can he lift Mjolnir? Why is he more like a barbarian than that BD Thor? I have already fallen to the ground and prepared to surrender. Shouldn't they arrest me and take me away? Why did they beat me so fiercely first? You really can't blame Xia Yu for this. Loki has one thing in common with Thor, who just came to Earth, that is, they both have the fanatical racial chauvinism of the Aesir gods, which is the pride of being called the gods in the Nine Kingdoms for a long time. To put it bluntly, these two naughty kids rely on their family's good conditions and high status, and have never been beaten by society. Unless they are beaten once and convinced, they will never talk to you nicely. It turned out that the movie I watched was Thor, Ragnarok. When Thor was captured by the Grandmaster and turned into a slave gladiator, he was very unconvinced at first, and kept saying that he was the god of thunder, the son of Odin, etc. It was not until Asgard was destroyed and Loki and others were killed by Thanos in front of him that he seemed a little more mature and stable. Therefore, for Xia Yu, regardless of whether they are in a hostile relationship now or not, this beating is quite necessary. As for how many times he will be beaten, that depends on Loki's own performance. If he still looks so superior, Xia Yu doesn't mind taking turns with Hulk. Everything went smoothly along the way, and not as many things happened as in the movies. Compared to the movies, the Avengers Alliance was not only established earlier, but everyone also experienced more things and had passed the level 1 running-in period. After successfully arriving on the helicarrier and locking Loki in it, Nick gave Loki a detailed introduction to the dangers of this aerial cage, and then gave Thor a chance to talk alone. Thor ran to persuade his brothers to put down their butcher knives and turn back, while Xia Yu and others followed Nick Fury to the bridge. We were all fooled. Loki was a bait. Metal was stolen from a laboratory in another part of Germany. The culprit was none other than our Shield's controlled agent. Hawkeye said. With the metal support, it will not be difficult for Shield's agents to obtain other materials. We need to hurry up and find the Rubik's Cube. Tony continued. The captain frowned and said, why did Loki do so much in Germany? If it was just to get the metal and attract our attention, he could have evacuated before we arrived. Banner was more cautious, let's hurry up and find the cube. Loki's thoughts are hard to figure out. I think he's just a lunatic. You'd better be careful with your words. Loki is from Asgard and is my younger brother. Thor seemed to have finished talking to Loki. He has killed at least dozens of people during the time he has been on Earth, Natasha Romanoff said calmly. He was adopted by my father. Thor immediately distanced himself from the matter. Xia Yu turned to look at Thor. Did you gain anything? No, he just kept asking some questions about you and didn't say anything else. Thor said helplessly. In fact, he still felt a little distressed when he saw Loki's miserable appearance. I have a suggestion, guys. Since Loki can control others with that scepter, we'd better isolate the scepter with some special material and not leave it outside. Who knows if it has any magical power that can influence people's minds or something? Xia Yu said to Nick Fury. Seeing Nick Fury nodded with deep emotion, Xia Yu continued, since we have no clues now, why don't we continue to look for the Tesseract? I'll go meet Loki. Thor, give me your hammer and I'll go and persuade your brother. Chapter 92. When Xia Yu saw Loki, this guy had almost recovered. He had used magic to make himself look noble and elegant again, with his hair neatly done. Seeing Xia Yu coming, Loki's eyes flashed with a barely perceptible panic and fear, but he immediately suppressed it, and subconsciously straightened his body, even raising his chin slightly. Xia Yu saw this childish behavior clearly, and she was extremely impressed with Odin. What kind of family education can raise two naughty children over 1,000 years old? Thor should have talked to you a lot about me. You should call me brother. Look, we are a family after all. Why can't we have a good talk to solve the problem? Fighting and killing is not good, especially among a family. It's very bad. Xia Yu said directly when they met. It would have been fine if Xia Yu hadn't said this. As soon as Loki said this, he was so angry that he almost exploded. He even forgot his fear of Xia Yu and yelled, what family are you talking about? Is a beating the first gift for a family to meet? Take that damn hammer and hit my face like it's iron. I'm not that idiot Thor. I don't acknowledge you as my brother. Loki mentioned the pain and touched his face where Xia Yu had hit him. Sure enough, he is just a naughty kid at heart. Xia Yu narrowed his eyes and looked at Loki's childish words without saying anything else. Loki was frightened by Xia Yu's gaze, and slammed the glass fiercely, saying fiercely, I am a god, I am the future king of Asgard, you are just a humble mortal, I will not. Xia Yu interrupted Loki, took out Mjolnir and said, if you dare to say anything about gods or mortals again, I will call Hulk out to beat you up together. Loki's eyelids twitched violently. He had heard about Hulk and just heard about Xia Yu from Thor. Combined with his own personal experience, he knew that Xia Yu would definitely not just talk. But when things got to this point, he still forced himself to remain calm and said, Hulk, that beast's name, aren't you afraid that he'll destroy this place if you let him out? Xia Yu smiled, we have already successfully communicated with Hulk. He may still be angry and irritable now, but he is no longer uncontrollable. Didn't Thor tell you this? Loki also laughed, really? You know the biggest difference between beasts and humans is that even the most docile and tamed beasts will occasionally explode with their bestiality, but they usually lack a little stimulation. If the stimulation you mean is your scepter inlaid with gems, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. We have sealed it with special materials to ensure that not a single bit of energy leaks out. Xia Yu said lightly. Loki's face really changed, but this time he just kept silent. No matter how Xia Yu asked or threatened him, he didn't say a word. Xia Yu sighed helplessly and said to Loki, you know what? You are a child who failed in the fight for favor. You tried hard to prove your ability to your father. Whether you sneaked into the earth or colluded with the Chitauri to attack here, this behavior was just a small prank in the eyes of your father and the person behind you. Even if you succeed, you are just a pawn on someone else's chessboard. But you think you can control everything and become the king. It's ridiculous. Xia Yu turned around and left. Before leaving, he turned back and said something to Loki, "When this is over, I will personally send you back to Asgard and beat you up in front of your parents." Loki couldn't hold it in any longer, and slammed the glass hard and shouted at Xia Yu, "I can't fail. I will eventually rule the entire 9 realms and I am destined to become the king of Asgard." Xia Yu ignored him and turned away. While walking towards Tony and Banner's temporary studio, Xia Yu sorted out everything that had happened so far in his mind. Hawkeye was not controlled, but Jane's father was taken away just like in the movie. They already got Metallica, and it was basically a certainty that Tesseract would open the portal, so he didn't want to stop it. The Avengers needed an action to save the world to be exposed to the public. The Avengers Alliance was established ahead of schedule, and the Psychic Scepter let himself retreat. Even if Loki's people outside came to attack Helicarrier again, with the current strength, there would not be a big chaos, and Loki should have no chance to get out. It is definitely not important whether he goes out or not. He can just kill monsters and gain reputation. Dr. Selvig will propose that Scepter can shut down the Rubik's Cube. It is just a matter of sooner or later. It will not have any impact. But Xia Yu always felt something was wrong and felt a little nervous. Bang! Xia Yu was lost in thought and walked too fast. The automatic door at the entrance of the studio had just opened halfway when Xia Yu bumped into it. Tony and Banner looked at Xia Yu in astonishment. How could he have hit the door if he could have dodged the bullets? "Xia, what are you thinking about? You actually bumped into the door. Is it because of your menstrual period that your endocrine system is out of balance and it affects your brain?" Tony teased. Xia Yu rarely fought back against Tony's teasing. "I always feel like something is wrong, but I can't put my finger on it. I feel a little uneasy." "Did anything Loki said affect you?" Banner asked with concern. Xia Yu frowned. "He didn't say anything, but I always feel like I overlooked something." Tony came over and patted you on the shoulder and said, "Don't think too much. We have set up the tracking algorithm. Once the Rubik's Cube starts running, we can find the location immediately. Don't think about it yourself. Let's go out and talk to everyone to see if there is anything missing. We are no longer needed here." Tony pulled Xia Yu towards the bridge, and Banner followed them a few steps away. They met a bald agent on the road, who greeted Tony and Xia Yu very friendly. Xia Yu felt that he looked very familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had seen him for a while. Not good. Xia Yu suddenly remembered what he had forgotten. Hydra. Since Hawkeye was not controlled by anyone, it was possible that a large number of Hydra people were controlled by someone. If Loki controlled the high-level figures of Hydra, he could pull out several Hydra people and control them. There may be Loki's chess pieces in the helicarrier, and the stimulation to beast mentioned by Loki does not necessarily refer to the scepter. Xia Yu turned around suddenly, only to see that the bald agent had already poured a bottle of liquid on Banner's face, and quickly began to run to the other side. "It's concentrated corticosteroids." Before Banner could finish these words, his body had already begun to change as if he were transforming. "Damn, it's a powerful stimulant that can make the brain excited." Tony saw Xia Yu's confusion and quickly explained the term Banner said. Roar. Hulk came out, and what was different from before was that this time his eyes were blood red. Chapter 93. Xia Yu didn't have time to think about it, and used his inner strength to send Tony far away with a palm. "Tony, protect the mothership, don't let anyone destroy the power." Xia Yu slapped out with one palm without caring how much Tony heard. He had already slapped Hulk between the chest and abdomen. Xia Yu exerted all his strength in this palm strike, and Hulk was hit into a bow shape and flew backwards rapidly. Hulk's eyes were bloodshot, violent and unfamiliar. Xia Yu had no intention of communicating with him at all. After slapping him with one palm, he pushed the ground hard with his right leg and shot out like an arrow. He caught up with the flying Hulk in midair and rammed his knees hard into Hulk's chest. Bang! Hulk landed heavily on the ground, leaving a 7 to 8 meter long and half-meter deep hole on the ground, almost reaching the next floor. Xia Yu didn't give Hulk any chance to breathe. His fists rained down on Hulk's head like crazy. Each punch made a dull sound like thunder, and the entire ground nearby shook with his fists. Xia Yu was looking for an opportunity to see if he could find the moment when Hulk's earlobe was exposed during his violent attack. After being knocked away by Xia Yu, Tony immediately came to the bridge. At this time, the emergency alarm in the mothership had begun to sound, and the entire bridge was in chaos with people coming and going. "Nick, control your people. There are people who are being controlled inside. Tony immediately told Nick that they must control the people inside first, as chaos at the critical moment would be unacceptable. Nick Fury immediately gave the order, Agent Hill, have everyone form groups of at least 3. No one is allowed to act alone. If anyone around you shows any signs of misbehavior, kill them immediately. Your 2 teams control the bridge. There must be no chaos here. Just as he finished speaking, a loud explosion was heard outside and the entire mothership began to shake. What happened? Nick Fury asked angrily. There was an explosion outside. The number 3 turbine engine was damaged and stopped functioning, sir. Can it be fixed? Nick asked. Okay, but we need to land. As long as we're still in flight, we can't send anyone out for repairs. If one more engine fails, we'll fall, sir. Stark, put on your armor. The engine is in your hands. Captain, you go and assist him. Thor, you go and help Xia stabilize Hulk. No matter whether you knock him out or throw him down, you must not let him destroy the mothership. Natasha Romanoff, you and Hawkeye, be on guard against enemy invasion. Where's Phil Coulson? Take your men to keep an eye on Loki and don't let him take the opportunity to escape. Nick Fury spewed out a series of orders. Everyone else can mess up, but he can't. Now in the sky, he has to be responsible for everyone's safety. Agent Hill, continue to execute my previous order. All drivers must not leave their seats. In case of an emergency, drive the mothership to the sea. At this moment, on the deck of the mothership, Brock Rumlow led 2 teams of people to land from 2 Quinjet fighters and quickly entered the interior of the mothership through the maintenance passage. The guards of the sky carrier were useless in Brock Rumlow's eyes, and he quickly led his men into the interior. On Tony Stark's side, the captain was the first to arrive at the explosion site. A huge amount of hole was blown open next to the helicarrier engine. Go to the engine control switches and see which ones are in overload status. I need to clear the obstacles that are causing the explosion first. Tony also put on his armor and flew to the damaged number 3 engine. When the mothership exploded, Xia Yu was riding on Hulk and delivering a series of critical hits. The heavy continuous blows were too much for even the crazy Hulk to bear, and he subconsciously turned his head away. Now! Xia Yu seized the fleeting opportunity and punched the sleep spot behind Hulk's earlobe. At this moment, the area near engine number 3 was blown up by Brock Rumlow, and Xia Yu, who was caught off guard, was thrown out by the violent shaking. Hulk took the opportunity to turn the tables and pounced fiercely on Xia Yu, who was thrown to the ground. Xia Yu changed into the armor with one click, and the jet engines on his feet started instantly. He broke away from Hulk's attack and ran towards the stern with Hulk. At this moment, the farther away from the bridge, the safer it was. Xia, where are you now? After putting on his armor, Tony ordered Jarvis to turn on everyone's headphones. I'm running towards the stern, Hulk is behind me. Xia Yu shouted loudly. He didn't dare to leave Hulk too far, for fear that his hatred would be transferred. Natasha Romanoff, how are you? Are you okay? Xia Yu did not forget to care about his girlfriend while running. I met Brock Rumlow. He was controlled by Loki and brought his men onto the mothership. Hawkeye and I were fighting him. There's no problem for now. There were bursts of gunfire from Natasha Romanoff's side from time to time, and it seemed that the fighting was fierce. Has anyone gone to Loki's place? The captain asked. Phil Coulson is leading the troops, Captain. Hawkeye shot an arrow and killed an enemy, then quickly hid behind cover again. We will repair the engine as soon as possible and go to support you. Xia, how is it over there? Is Hulk still going crazy? Tony's voice sounded again. I'm riding a roller coaster, Thor, hurry up. Xia Yu was just knocked away by Hulk's punch. Hulk was just about to pounce when Thor arrived in time and knocked him away. Xia Yu quickly got up, and the 2 of them managed to control the battle within a small area. Old tactics? Thor asked, referring to pinning the Hulk with his hammer. That's useless. Even if he's pinned down, I can't hit him. I'm afraid he'll punch through the bottom of the mothership. Xia Yu blocked Hulk's full-strength punch with both hands. Thor took the opportunity to jump up and hit Hulk on the chin with a hammer, knocking Hulk away. Where's your weapon? Being injured will only make him more violent. I can't cut off his head and delay the battle further. Xia Yu said. Phil Coulson went to the armory and got a weapon developed by Tesseract. He brought a few people and hurried to the place where Loki was imprisoned. When he arrived and saw Loki was still inside, Phil Coulson breathed a sigh of relief. He asked several of his men to disperse and guard the passage, and he himself stood guard by the control console. As long as Loki made any unusual movement, he would immediately control the switch to drop the glass cage from a high altitude. Poof! A scepter pierced Phil Coulson's chest from behind, and the blade extended from Phil Coulson's front. The Loki I saw just now was just an illusion. Chapter 94. The bald guy who just splashed Banner's face with stimulant came here to release Loki after he left. Loki stayed to ambush Thor, but Thor didn't come, but Phil Coulson came instead. Loki escaped. I repeat, Loki escaped. Phil Coulson is seriously injured. Requesting support. The men brought by Phil Coulson reported the situation immediately, and then drew their guns and launched an attack on Loki. With Hulk and an engine, the strongest force of the Avengers Alliance was overwhelmed. Brock Rumlow led a team to hold Hawkeye and Natasha Romanoff alive. People controlled by Loki jumped out from time to make trouble. Nick Fury could only let Agent Hill and his men guard the stability of the bridge and could no longer take care of anything else. The communication system of the Avengers Alliance and others has been connected to the internal system of S.H.I.E.L.D. Knowing that Phil Coulson was seriously injured, Xia Yu's heart trembled. Phil Coulson was actually killed in the movie, and later in the TV series, they found a way to resurrect him, but Xia Yu didn't dare to take the risk. After spending some time with Phil Coulson, Xia Yu already considered him as her friend, so she started to get anxious. Thor, I have to go save Phil Coulson, you think of a way. Xia Yu said. You fly out first, and summon the hammer when you hear my signal. Thor said loudly. Xia Yu found an opportunity to leave the battle group, smashed the glass window at the rear and flew out. Thor used all his strength to block Hulk's punch with one hand, and the hammer slipped out of his hand and hit Hulk's abdomen. Now! Thor roared. Xia Yu stretched out his right hand, and at this moment the hammer was just against Hulk's belly. The hammer, Hulk, and Xia Yu were in a straight line. As soon as Xia Yu stretched out his hand, the Meow Meow hammer flew out with Hulk. Unexpectedly, when Hulk was knocked flying, he reached out a hand and grabbed Thor's foot. Stop summoning. The hammer will break his body at this angle. You go save him. I have a way to escape. Thor shouted loudly at Xia Yu. Xia Yu ignored Thor and Hulk who were falling freely, and did not choose to return the same way as it was too slow, but flew directly to the hole in the number 3 engine and went in. After dealing with the people who were blocking the captain and Tony, Xia Yu flew in from the damaged area. Xia, I'm sorry I couldn't stop Loki. He had already come out when I arrived. Tony told me to take me and the cello girl to Portland one weekend. It seems I won't have the chance to go. Phil Coulson sat on the ground leaning against the wall, holding an exaggerated gun in his hand, and said weakly to Xia Yu. Shut up, you pervert who's still thinking about dating before you die. Save your energy and don't say a word. You won't die if I come. Xia Yu hurried to Phil Coulson's side and stretched out his hand to output his internal force to heal Phil Coulson's injuries. Loki ran away. Phil Coulson is still speaking. This is not your fault. No one would have thought that there were so many of their people inside. Xia Yu advised him while healing his wounds. Hey, Stark, do you hear me? I can't die. I want to take your private plane on my trip to Portland, Phil Coulson, Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson suddenly screamed, and several concerned voices came from the headphones. It's okay, he won't die, he just talked too much and I knocked him out. Xia Yu said calmly. With Xia Yu taking care of a few troublemakers, Tony and Captain America quickly and smoothly repaired the engine, and went to help Natasha Romanoff and Hawkeye take care of Brock Rumlow and others. Loki had escaped with Scepter in a fighter jet without knowing it. Helicarrier calmed down the riot again. Xia Yu helped Phil Coulson stabilize his injuries and handed him over to the medical team. Thor took the naked and unconscious Banner onto the helicarrier. Nick Fury brought everyone to a conference room on the mothership, and then Nick Fury blocked the door of the conference room. Only Nick Fury and a few people from the Avengers Alliance were inside. Brock Rumlow was originally in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D's action team. After Hawkeye joined the Avengers Alliance, I transferred him over to protect the Tesseract because we were short of manpower. After Loki arrived, he controlled him. Among the people he brought today, one was a level 3 agent from S.H.I.E.L.D. The captain knocked them out, and this level 3 agent woke up before Rumlow. The first thing he said when he woke up was, Rumlow is from Hydra. Captain America was the most sensitive to this question. Hydra still exists. If you cut off a head, 2 more will grow. Obviously, not all the heads were chopped off back then. They have become even better at hiding themselves. The agent also reported several names, all of whom are high-level agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., including the bald man who induced Banner to transform. Nick Fury said. So you brought us here to talk about Hydra? Honestly, I don't really care about that right now. In fact, in my opinion, there's no difference between S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. Tony said as he took out his cell phone, which contained the information he obtained after cracking the S.H.I.E.L.D. server. S.H.I.E.L.D. used Tesseract to create weapons of mass destruction. Everyone looked at Nick Fury. Hydra makes weapons to rule the world, and I make weapons to protect the world. Remember the stick theory your father talked about, Tony? Compared to the universe, the Earth's stick is too thin. Do you remember what I told you about the original intention of the Avengers' plan? Nick Fury said. I remember you told us to be the shield of the Earth, but now you want to make a sword. The captain was a little angry. I can't rely on just a few of you to ensure the safety of the world. I must develop weapons that can fight against alien civilizations. Nick Fury said loudly. It is your behavior of using the Tesseract to develop weapons that attracted Loki and the Chitauri. In the eyes of other civilizations, your Earth is preparing for a high-level cosmic war. Thor also felt dissatisfied. You don't entrust the safety of the world to us, but to S.H.I.E.L.D., which is full of Hydra. Nick, maybe what you said makes sense, but you developed the weapons, but you can't guarantee whether the hands holding the weapons are clean or bloody. You can't guarantee it. You promised me that the Avengers Alliance is a secret. How do you explain the last military incident? You can't guarantee anything. Xia Yu said to Nick Fury. That's exactly what I want to say. Now I have to manage my own place and not cause any trouble for you. Loki is left to you. Nick Fury said. We will deal with Loki, but after this is over, I need to have a good talk with you about Hydra, Nick. The captain said lightly. No one understood the threat posed by Hydra better than him. Xia Yu spoke again. Nick, go and stabilize the situation first. Leave Loki to us. You do your best to help us remove all obstacles. After this matter is over, the Avengers will no longer be controlled by S.H.I.E.L.D. As I said before, I can trust you, but I don't trust the S.H.I.E.L.D. director. Nick Fury said nothing and turned away. Everyone knew that they could no longer stop the portal from opening, and all they had to do now was prepare for battle. The war is about to begin. Chapter 95. After Nick left, Banner woke up slowly. Oh my god, what happened? Did I hurt anyone? You grabbed Thor's feet and jumped off the mothership, and you punched me more than a dozen times. There shouldn't be anything else. Don't worry about it. The original equipment was blown up. Is there any way to find the Rubik's Cube quickly? Xia Yu knew where it was, but couldn't say it directly. Banner shook his still dizzy head. If Loki is eager to open the portal, then he can only go to the Stark building. There is no better place than there. With high-density energy, is there anything better than his reactor? Xia Yu nodded. That makes sense. Loki is a typical egomaniac. He likes applause and flowers, and wants his name to be on top. Tony, does it sound familiar? Damn it, let's go. Tony's building was just completed, so it would be strange if he wasn't in a hurry. Then everyone get ready and set off in 5 minutes. Banner, don't waste time putting on your clothes. They will burst anyway. Xia Yu made a decision. Stark building. Xia Yu and Tony Thor, the three who could fly, arrived first. Sure enough, they found Dr. Selvig who had already activated the equipment on the top of the Stark building. Stop immediately, Dr. Selvig. Thor landed first. It's too late. Once it starts running, it can't be stopped. It will take us to see a whole new universe. Dr. Selvig's eyes lit up. You are wrong, Doctor, it just opens a portal to hell. Thor said as he raised his hammer and smashed the Tesseract hard. Unfortunately, the Tesseract had already started working, and there was an energy shield outside that blocked Thor's hammer, which exploded with amazing rebound energy. Thor was flung under the building, and Dr. Selvig also hit the box next to him and fainted. Let me try. Tony fired a double-shot laser cannon at the Rubik's Cube with both hands. Bang! Tony also flew out. Xia Yu looked down and saw Loki standing on the platform below, looking at them with mockery in his eyes. This kid is getting too arrogant. Xia Yu thought to himself, and immediately fell down. You are too late. My army will be here soon. Loki said as he walked into the house. Although the Rubik's Cube was successfully run and the Chitauri army would be here soon, Loki was still a little nervous about Xia Yu. Xia Yu followed Loki into the house. Are you so sure that the earth has no power to resist? Who gave you that confidence? It might really be the imminent arrival of the Chitauri that gave Loki courage. Loki proudly said to Xia Yu, Earth? This rural place called Planet C-53 by other civilizations? That's an army, not to mention a god like me from Asgard. Alas! Xia Yu sighed softly, shook his head and said, Why do you have such a short memory? As Xia Yu spoke, he slapped Loki in the face. Loki picked up the scepter and tried to resist, but Xia Yu slapped him on the wrist. The scepter fell directly on the wine cabinet. Xia Yu raised his hand again and slapped Loki on the head again. Pa! This time, Loki's left temple was hit hard. Xia Yu's powerful body force of 30 tons almost sent Loki flying. That's enough. My army is coming soon. The earth is destined to be mine. How dare you hit me? Pa! Another time, I can't help it when I see you, and I can't help it even more when you talk. Xia Yu said. Pa! You really think you're such a big shot? We're here to deal with the Chitauri army. You're just a passerby. You're being used as a gun and you don't even know it. I don't know where your pride comes from. If Loki could still resist Xia Yu's attacks under normal circumstances, then after the beating last time, no matter how strong Loki was, he would not be Xia Yu's opponent. He had already used up all his courage when he picked up the scepter to resist that attack just now. All that was left now was to dodge and raise your hands to protect your head a little. Brother, stop fighting. I'll talk to him. The portal is about to open. You and Tony can go and take a look. Thor flew up at some point. Xia Yu glanced at Loki reluctantly twice, still feeling angry after thinking about it. He flipped his right hand and took out the heavenly sword from the ring. With a slash of his sword, he stabbed a shallow wound on Loki's thigh and said, If it weren't for Odin and Thor, I would have cut off your head with one sword. You really think you are the hero, you stupid brat? Xia Yu let out a little sigh of relief, left the place to the two Thor brothers, and flew out to the roof. The instrument on the rooftop carrying the tesseract was spinning rapidly, faster, and finally when it reached its peak speed, it shot a visible blue light toward the sky, and the portal began to open. Speed, peak, shoot. I always feel like there's something wrong with what I wrote. System tasks have been issued, please check, Master. As the blue light shot into the sky, Tumul's voice rang in Xia Yu's mind. Xia Yu immediately opened the task to check. 1. Destroy the invading Chitauri army, and you will be rewarded with 10 points for each soldier and 500 points for each Leviathan dragon-shaped flight device. 2. Win the Battle of New York, which requires destroying the Chitauri mothership or shutting down the Tesseract, and you will be rewarded with 50,000 points. 3. Eliminate hidden enemies, reward, absorb part of Tesseract's attribute power. Beidou, what is a hidden enemy? As expected, the team battle missions are still powerful. The third one is too attractive. Xia Yu is excited to absorb the attribute power of infinite gems. Master, I was told it was hidden, how would I know? You named me Tumul, not Beidou. Thank you. Damn it, I always thought I was a sharp-tongued BD compared to you, I'm just a pure baby. Let me ask you, do I have to complete the second task myself before I can get the reward? Xia Yu was a little exasperated. Thank you for the compliment, Master. Please remember that you are a member of the Avengers. We fight as a team and definitely share the victory. It doesn't matter if you are the real one or not. This is not bad, it's quite humane. It's a messy fight and you may not be able to grab it by yourself. One last question, Tumul, since the second task is completed by the team, then for the first task, will I also get points if they kill monsters? Xia Yu asked again. Master, stop dreaming. Do you really treat this as a game? Do you have experience in forming a team? Impossible, haha. Tumul's electronic voice, word by word, sounded again. The author has something to say, there will be another chapter later. Chapter 96. Xia Yu didn't have time to ask any more questions, because a portal had opened in the sky and it seemed to be expanding. Xia Yu could even see the Zeta Tian soldiers who were ready to make a move through the small hole. Xia, do you have any plans? Tony asked. No, let's fight first. I'll go up to stop them, and you clean up the ones that slipped through the net below. After saying that, Xia Yu flew up with a whoosh. Xia Yu was not stupid. He took advantage of the fact that the hole was not big and was crowded with people inside and harvested a wave of them first. Did you inhale stimulants on the mothership? Tony muttered as he watched Xia Yu whoosh past him. When Xia Yu flew to the portal, the hole had only opened to a diameter of less than 1 meter. Xia Yu attacked with all his strength without hesitation, without even looking at the target inside, and just slapped the hole with both palms. Tumul. Master is here. Why is there no points prompt? I have killed quite a few. Xia Yu looked into the cave entrance and saw many Chitauri soldiers being killed by him, but there was no points prompt. It will be recorded automatically and settled after the mission is completed, Master. Xia Yu stopped talking and concentrated on killing monsters. The guns in the hands of the ordinary Chitauri soldiers could not even break Xia Yu's body protective true chi. The internal force purified by the eternal fire had a natural advantage in defending against these small yield energy weapons. The speed at which the cave entrance expanded was not slow. It was already about 3 meters wide, but it was still within Xia Yu's attack range. Xia Yu did not take out the sword of the heavenly sword. He relied on the long-range attack of the 18 palms of the dragon subduing and the endless and rapid recovery properties of the 9 yang divine art to block the Chitauri army outside the portal. Xia, what's going on over there now? Is the portal open? Natasha Romanoff's voice came from the headset. Xia Yu really couldn't care less at the moment. He was busy scoring points, so he didn't have time to answer Natasha Romanoff's words. To be honest, he definitely didn't hear it. Ahem. Natasha Romanoff. Xia probably doesn't have time to answer your question. The portal has been opened and is gradually expanding. Xia is working hard to eliminate the enemy. Tony was a little embarrassed. He didn't know what to do. Natasha Romanoff was a little anxious. Hold on a bit, we'll be there soon. Don't be in a hurry, drive slowly, safety first, I'm quite free here. Tony said a little embarrassedly. As the game went on, Xia Yu discovered a pattern: the larger the portal opened by the Tesseract, the slower it expanded. Otherwise, in the movie, it would have been opened 2 or 3 meters at the beginning, and it took a long time for the Leviathan dragon-shaped flight device to appear. Now a minute has passed and the cave entrance has expanded from 3 meters to about 4 meters. The Tesseract opened the portal, the alien army attacked the Earth, and the entire New York City was peaceful and calm, except for some debris falling from under the Stark building from time to time. Many people far away couldn't see what was happening, so they opened their phones and stood still to record videos. When Natasha Romanoff and others arrived, they saw such a strange atmosphere. Tony, wearing his armor, was suspended in mid-air, staring up at the sky. Above him, Xia Yu was guarding a wormhole less than 5 meters in diameter. He constantly clapped his hands, and often one palm could penetrate 7 or 8 Zatori soldiers. However, not a single alien could get out of the portal intact. Captain America was the one who reacted faster. Let's go down and organize the evacuation first. The portal is expanding all the time. It's impossible for Xia to block it forever. There are too many people watching the excitement below. Tony, you can add firepower here. Where's Thor? I'm on top of the building, Captain. Loki just hit me and I don't know where he ran off to. Thor appeared on the platform of the Stark building, and just like in the movie, he was stabbed by Loki. You will be the third line of defense down there. If anyone escapes from Tony, you will electrocute them severely. Can't you summon lightning? The captain made quick arrangements. The hole was getting bigger and bigger. Xia Yu could already see huge amounts of Chitauri motherships behind him. The Chitauri soldiers were shooting at Xia Yu more and more densely. The consumption of internal energy increased several times. It was no longer realistic to use the 18 dragon subduing palms to guard the hole without moving. Xia Yu had no choice but to give up the temptation of points, drew out the Yishan sword with his right hand, held the sword in his right hand and his left hand, and began to use the armor to quickly and flexibly maneuver in the air, killing as many people as possible. As Xia Yu's tactics changed, Tony also started roaming and killing below, and Thor turned into a magician with a hammer below, using lightning to make long-range kills. However, as time went on, the pressure on the 3 lines of defense formed by these 3 people began to increase, and more soldiers dodged the attacks of the 3 people, ran into New York City and began to fire indiscriminately. The entire lower Manhattan area was suddenly in chaos. Captain America just showed up in time to save a girl who was staring blankly at the roadside. He took a moment to look up at the sky and found that the defense line was getting farther and farther away. He immediately started to redeploy and said, "Just leave one person on your side. More and more people are coming out. There are many people here who need help." Xia Yu immediately responded after hearing this, "I'll stay here, but before I leave I have to do something big. Tony, Thor, cooperate with me." After saying that, Xia Yu took out a box of missiles from the ring and threw them towards the hole with all his strength. "Tony, now!" Xia Yu shouted loudly. Tony immediately stretched out his right arm, and a micro-missile shot out from the armor, hitting the box thrown by Xia Yu. Boom! The quality of Stark's munitions was guaranteed, and they immediately cleared the nearly 10-meter wide hole. A large number of the Chitauri soldiers waiting in line to attack were also killed, but the gap only lasted for less than a second before it was filled by the soldiers rushing in from behind. "Thor, is lightning ready? I need you to hit me hard." Xia Yu pulled out a Gatling gun again. "Why a Gatling gun again?" "Because it has more bullets." When Xia Yu threw the missile just now, Thor had already raised his hammer and had been summoning lightning for half a day. He released it all at once, and the densely packed Chitauri soldiers were blasted into debris. Xia Yu started his struggle alone, but he found that using heavy firepower like Gatling with a lot of bullets and a fast firing rate to fight monsters was really useful. He started shooting at the densely packed soldiers, and Xia Yu really had the feeling of playing games and fighting zombies in his previous life. But this feeling didn't last long, because the Leviathan dragon-shaped flight device came out. From now on, it will be called Leviathan, just so you know what it is. "Guys, the big guy is out, is Hulk ready?" Roar! Hulk's roar came from the headset, indicating to Xia Yu that he had already come out. "I'll try not to let the big guy go over there. If there's any leaks, Hulk and Thor will clean them up in time. This thing has too much destructive power." Xia Yu drew out the heavenly sword and rushed towards Leviathan. "Xia, do you want me to come over and help you deal with the big guy?" Tony took the time to look at the wormhole. The flight device was so big that he was worried that Xia Yu would get hurt. "No need. You try to control them within these few blocks from above, especially to the west. Don't let these bastards go past 3 blocks to the west." Xia Yu had already started cutting the dragon's head of Leviathan. "I'll try my best, but can you tell me why it's on the west side? Are there any residential areas over there?" Tony was quickly flight around the battlefield. "I don't know, but Chinatown is over there and my house is there. Why did you build this damn building in Manhattan? I hate you, Tony." Xia Yu stabbed the dragon head of Leviathan with a fierce sword. Chapter 97. Leviathan was a bit too thick for the heavenly sword. Xia Yu dealt with the large number of Chitauri soldiers jumping out from the side of Leviathan while trying to make as big a hole as possible behind Leviathan's head. After a long time of effort, he finally made a hole deep enough. Xia Yu took out 7 or 8 grenades from his ring and threw them all in without even looking. He bit the safety of the last one, threw it in, and quickly flew away. The shell of Leviathan was indeed hard enough. So many grenades thrown into it could not blow it in half. The huge body barely brushed past the Stark building and fell heavily to the ground. A building next to it was lightly touched, and like foam, a lot of steel and concrete were knocked off a corner of the building. Xia Yu was carried by the Leviathan not far from the ground. He looked up and saw at least 10 of them trying to get out of the portal. Xia Yu didn't care about earning points. "Thor, bring another big one." The massive amount of lightning summoned by Thor is the nemesis of most mechanical bodies. A bolt of lightning will cause sparks to fly and will probably burn out the circuit directly, definitely except for the armor made by Tony, the pervert. Thor flew directly to a building, raised his hammer and summoned lightning. The whole building seemed like a huge amounts of lightning rod, as if connected to Thor. Huge amounts of lightning surrounded Thor. A dark cloud rolled up above Thor's head, and bolts of lightning jumped out of it and fell on Thor's hammer. It was almost at its limit, and Thor swung his hammer. A bolt of lightning with a diameter of more than half a meter hit the head of a Leviathan that was about to fly out of the wormhole. The electric current quickly passed through its huge body, and there were flashes of blue light of lightning, mixed with the fire of burnt circuits in the middle. Soon the Leviathan lost power and fell down. Thor's lightning has penetrated through the body of this Leviathan and connected at least 7 or 8 Leviathans and dozens of Zatavio soldiers riding on flight devices behind it. The huge amounts of power of this attack also made Xia Yu secretly feel sorry for his points. It would be great if he could get points from everyone who beat him. The portal was temporarily handed over to Thor. Xia Yu followed Tony's example and flew all over the battlefield, killing monsters while trying to keep the battlefield within a certain range. The streets were full of people shouting and yelling, and some police officers tried their best to organize and help civilians to take shelter in buildings or underground garages. Natasha Romanoff and Hawkeye were using several taxis as cover to shoot at a group of Zetasil soldiers on the ground. Just like in the movies, one of them was holding two small pistols and the other was shooting arrows with a bow, and the fight was quite lively. Xia Yu flew all the way over and killed several soldiers who were shooting at them with one sword each. Your equipment and skills are not suitable for fighting small soldiers like this. The efficiency is too slow. I will be your arsenal. Xia Yu took out several heavy-fire machine guns and several rifles and threw them on the ground. He then took out several boxes of bullets and grenades and asked Natasha Romanoff to put them in his ring. We don't know how long this battle will end. You should save your energy and equipment and use these first. These soldiers can be killed one by one anyway. It makes no difference. Xia Yu didn't have time to say anything caring. She exchanged a cautious look with Natasha Romanoff and flew out again. Bang! Xia Yu, who was flying in the air, was knocked flying by Iron Man. The two rolled on the ground for more than 10 meters before they stopped. Tony, what's going on? Xia Yu stood up, casually took out an AK, and started firing at the Chitauri soldiers on the wall of the building. Do you know the story about Jonah? Tony said, pointing at the Leviathan that was exploding from the inside in the distance. It was obvious that he was blown out from the inside. Then you should stay in there for 3 days and 3 nights. God will keep you safe. Xia Yu reached out and helped Tony up. The allusion to Jonah, the biblical story, Jonah stayed in the belly of a big fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Why don't I see Thor? Tony used the radiation cannon to quickly clear the Chitauri soldiers in front of him. Where should he deal with the big guy? Xia Yu cleared out some soldiers that could be seen on the nearby buildings and flew up again. He also wanted to find a Leviathan to kill. Why didn't he invite me? Tony also got up and flew away. Xia Yu rose to a high altitude and took a look at the battlefield. It might be due to the limitations of the filming, but he found that the number of Leviathans was far more than what was seen in the movie. Xia Yu glanced casually and saw at least a dozen in flight in the sky. Tony, can we try to lure as many of them as possible and take care of them together? If these guys keep flying like that, there won't be a building over 20 stories high in Manhattan tomorrow. Xia Yu wanted to find a place to take care of these big ones. I'll lure a few of them over first. You find out where Thor and Hulk are. It's best to take them to the bridge next to us. It's a big place and there's no one there. Tony quickly activated the small weapons on his armor to attract the Leviathan's hatred. Everyone, let's go to the bridge nearby. Loki must be giving orders in secret. I noticed that these troops are attacking us first. The captain had just caught a small bomb with his shield, and he spoke a little breathlessly. I'll go get Natasha Romanoff and Hawkeye first. Xia Yu quickly took Hawkeye and Natasha Romanoff to the bridge, which was full of empty cars. The two of them could set up a firing point here and attract some fire from the Zeta soldiers at the same time. Tony, tell me when you come over. Captain, can you still run? Do you need me to pick you up? Xia Yu asked. Captain America's classic quote came from the headphones, I can play like this all day long. Xia, I'm coming, and there are 3 of them following me, you better hurry up. Hearing Tony's words, Xia Yu quickly flew over and saw Tony flying at a low altitude, followed by 3 Leviathans. Thor landed from the sky on the head of one of them. Xia Yu also thrust his sword into the other one's neck, drew out the Yishan sword, and used his internal force to transform his palm into a knife, thrusting it fiercely into the gap created by the Yishan sword, and struck inside with all his strength. Hurry up, you two, I have another one, the Hulk. Tony shouted. Roar. Hulk jumped onto the bridge from somewhere and rushed towards the last Leviathan. He punched the Leviathan's dragon head with his right fist. The huge flight device that was traveling at high speed was forced to stop by Hulk's punch, and huge amounts of inertia pushed Hulk back continuously. But Hulk's right fist held the Leviathan's dragon head firmly without moving, and his feet dragged 2 small holes on the ground. Hulk punched with all his strength and killed one Leviathan directly. Xia Yu and Thor also dealt with the other 2. Several people flew or jumped to Hawkeye and Natasha Romanoff. The captain had arrived earlier. Xia Yu and Iron Man were floating more than 1 meter above the ground. In front of them was the roaring Hulk, and in front of them were Thor, Captain America, Black Widow and Hawkeye forming a semicircle. The Avengers gathered, and the surrounding Leviathans or ordinary Zeta soldiers gathered densely around the few people as if attracted by a magnet. Roar! Chapter 98. Leviathan and the Chitauri soldiers that jumped out of it seemed to have some kind of spiritual or mental connection. After killing 3 Leviathans in a row, many Chitauri soldiers took off their masks and let out meaningless roars. In response, they heard Hulk's even more violent roar. Manhattan is in complete chaos, and we cannot expand the scope to other parts of New York. The National Guard hasn't arrived yet, so our main task now is to rescue people and control the scope of the battlefield. The captain briefly explained the situation and began to assign tasks. Hawkeye, find a place with a good view and call for help wherever support is needed. Tony, you should patrol the entire battlefield and try to keep the enemy within the existing range. Xia and Thor should keep an eye on the big guys and eliminate them as soon as you find one. The captain looked at Hulk again. Hulk, you stay in these few blocks and attack the big guys first. Natasha Romanoff and I will defend this place, but I have one request. All of you don't run too far. With me as the center, try to pull the battlefield back. Loki will target us first. Pay attention to Loki's movements. Everyone nodded and prepared to leave. Hawkeye said to Tony, give me a ride. Xia Yu took the initiative and said, let me take you there, and I'll leave you some ammunition. The members of the Avengers Alliance scattered and began to act. From a bird's eye view, the entire Manhattan, especially the downtown area, was in chaos. There were also a few scattered Zetavio soldiers in other areas, running rampant in the air and on the ground, but their number was not large. With the defense of the police system and the evacuation of personnel, the damage caused was not great. It's mainly a few blocks around the Stark building. Densely packed Zetarui soldiers riding flight machines and some Leviathans were flying in the air. From time to time, their flanks and tails passed over some buildings, bringing up a large area of steel and concrete. Tony Stark, wearing a battle suit, constantly moved around the battlefield, clearing out the Chitauri soldiers in the air and on the ground. Occasionally, when he passed by Captain America and Natasha Romanoff, he would come down and use the laser cannon and the captain's shield to rebound and clear out a wave of soldiers. When they met Leviathan, they flew towards Xia Yu and the other 2. Hawkeye was on the roof of a building, constantly clearing out the Chitauri soldiers flying in the air with a rifle. Xia Yu left him a few guns and a lot of ammunition. In this situation, bows and arrows were too inefficient in killing monsters. The captain also picked up a heavy machine gun and, together with Natasha Romanoff, began frantically shooting at the Zeta soldiers on the bridge and in the air. At this time, accuracy was not required much, as enemies were visible to the naked eye outside, and people had already fled or hid in buildings. Another Leviathan swam towards the captain and Natasha Romanoff, but was jumped by the madly running Hulk, who also crashed 2 soldiers riding small flight machines in the air, grabbed the dragon head of the Leviathan, and pulled it to the ground. Xia Yu mainly wandered around the portal. As long as there were not 3 Leviathans coming out at the same time, Xia Yu could destroy them before they reached low altitude. There were at least a dozen disabled Leviathan flight devices piled on the ground in front of the Stark building. Thor used his hammer to clear the way and rushed around, flying wherever there were more enemies. Those ordinary Zeta steel soldiers were shattered into pieces by one hit from Mjolnir, and when they encountered Leviathan, Thor landed directly on it. After knocking away countless Chitauri soldiers, Thor discovered that there was a Leviathan flying in front of him. After quickly landing, he found that Hulk was punching monsters one by one on the Leviathan. Seeing Thor coming up, Hulk peeled a long triangle off the Leviathan's shell. Thor thrust the longhorn into Leviathan's body, and smashed it down with his hammer. The outer shell pierced through Leviathan's body. The stalled Leviathan fell heavily to the ground. Driven by inertia, the dragon head crashed into the lobby of a building and became completely motionless. Hulk, who was standing on the dragon's head, seemed to be not satisfied with the fight and punched Thor, who was standing on his left, away. The 7 members of the Avengers Alliance, each doing their own job and showing their unique abilities, managed to control the battlefield in roughly 1/3 of Manhattan and delayed the battle until the arrival of the National Guard. Some of the Chitauri's technology may be far ahead of Earth's, but Earth's existing thermal weapons are equally effective against the Chitauri. A small pistol can deal a fatal blow to the Chitauri soldiers at close range. So after the National Guard cleared out the scattered Chitauri nearby and established defensive positions on the edge of the central battlefield, Tony suddenly felt the pressure relieved. He had just been constantly flying for nearly an hour, clearing out enemies along the way, and the constant high-intensity fighting made him a little nervous. "Captain, the National Guard is here, and the battlefield is temporarily under control. It's time to find a way to close that door up there. Does anyone have any good ideas?" Tony took the time to speak to the team. "Haven't you all tried and found that the energy shield outside can't be penetrated? Someone pay attention to where Loki is and catch him to see if there is any way." Captain America's voice was getting more and more panting. After fighting for such a long time, Xia Yu felt that he was hit by the laser gun more and more times. When he saw Hulk fighting just now, it seemed that he was not as violent as at the beginning. But Xia Yu didn't care about Loki. Closing the portal was not a problem for him. The problem was that there was a hidden enemy. First, it would be very dangerous if he couldn't find it. Second, the reward was too tempting and he really wanted to get it. "I saw Loki, Captain. Once I take him down, Xia or Thor can consider coming over." Hawkeye saw Loki riding the Chitauri flight device in the air, and quickly told everyone. Then Hawkeye threw his gun to the ground and picked up a bow and arrow. "The author has something to say. I was busy all day today, so it's late. I'll post one chapter first. I'll try to get the other 2 chapters up before 11 o'clock. Chapter 99. Hawkeye's archery skills have in some sense surpassed the limits of humans. He never misses a target when he draws the bow. In addition, he has a wide variety of arrows with various functions. If Xia Yu cannot get close in the first place, even if Hawkeye targets him from a distance, he will suffer a loss. Hawkeye's temperament seemed a little different as he drew his bow and shot an arrow. Staring at Loki, who was flying quickly in the air, Hawkeye put on a confident smile. "I got you." Swoosh! The black arrow flew towards Loki's temple with incredible accuracy. Unfortunately, Loki had just noticed this and was obviously prepared. When the arrow came, Loki stretched out his left hand to catch the arrow steadily. The silver-white metal arrow was less than 5 centimeters away from Loki's temple. Loki grabbed the arrow with one hand and gave a mocking smile in Hawkeye's direction. Unfortunately, he apparently didn't notice the rapidly flashing light on the arrow. Drib! Drib! Bang! The arrow exploded immediately, and Loki was blown away from the flight device and fell to the ground. When he was about to hit the ground, he was grabbed by Xia Yu, who was flying at a high speed. After flying over 2 blocks, he was thrown to Hulk, who was holding a taxi and smashing the Zeta Mini soldiers. "Hulk, beat him up first and then take him to the Stark building." Xia Yu threw a word to Hulk and then rushed towards the Leviathan in front. He still needed to hurry up to earn points. Loki was blown down and was caught by Xia Yu again, then thrown to Hulk, who caught him again and threw him hard to the ground. Hulk originally wanted to throw him to the ground and then pounce on him and punch him a few times. Who knew that Loki would stand up with a somersault? He had no psychological trauma towards Hulk. The series of passive situations just now made him feel humiliated, so he stood up and roared at Hulk, "Enough, I am the god of Asgard, you damn, lowly humans, you." Facts have proved that some plots may be system inertia, and some may be caused by the parties themselves, such as Loki, who was grabbed by the feet by Hulk in the middle of speaking and smashed to the ground with both hands. After arguing back and forth for more than 10 times, the ground on both sides was already in pieces. Hulk looked at Loki lying on the ground with a disfigured face, spitted with disdain, and said, "Weak god." When he turned around to leave, he remembered that Xia Yu asked him to take Loki to the Stark building, so he grabbed Loki's feet again, used Loki as a weapon, and jumped towards the Stark building while hitting the Chitauri. "Stark, there is a group of people following you. Please pass by me and I will help you clean them up," Hawkeye said loudly. Most of the Chitauri soldiers passed by quickly in the air, usually chasing Xia Yu, Tony and others, and not many attacked him. "Come to my place. I just summoned a big one. Let's deal with it together. I'm right in front of you, Stark." It was Thor's voice. Tony saw Thor was right in front of him, and there was a Leviathan in front of him. Tony and his soldiers landed on the Leviathan, and Thor's lightning also crackled over. Tony immediately stood up and flew away, but the metal on his armor was too conductive and he was hit by lightning before he flew very far. Under the high-intensity electric energy attack, several small cracks appeared on the outside of the armor. "Energy reaches 280%. Jarvis's voice suddenly sounded. Tony flew into the air in surprise and began to bombard the surroundings with laser cannons. He had little energy left and the ammunition was basically used up. Tony used the physical attacks of the armor to fight ordinary soldiers, or directly rammed them during the flight. He could only seduce Leviathan and really couldn't beat him. He had been feeling frustrated for a long time. Wow, Thor, save your power and don't waste your lightning. I just found out that you can actually charge me. I love you, Thor. I already have a girlfriend, Tony. Where is Loki? Thor asked. Who? In Hulk's hand. Thor's face turned pale with fear. He still loved his younger brother very much. Hulk, don't kill him. We still have to ask him how to close the hole in the sky. It's okay, Thor, I'll be there soon. Loki won't die, don't worry. Xia Yu had just killed a Leviathan and was about to go find Loki. He had to ask Loki about it. The hidden enemy made him feel uneasy. Hulk looked down at Loki in his hand, whose head was facing down, and said, well, it seems like he's not dead. Hulk felt a little guilty, and was really afraid that he might be killed. Then Hulk saw several soldiers firing at him, and he roared again, and rushed forward waving Loki. By the time Xia Yu arrived at the Stark building and reunited with Hulk, Loki on the ground was barely recognizable as a human. Xia Yu reached out his hand to check his breath and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately he was not dead. He stretched out his hand and slapped Loki's face a dozen times. Loki didn't react at all. Xia Yu frowned. How could he ask this? Shouldn't he give it directly to Hulk? Did he have to use up some of his internal energy to wake him up? Xia Yu raised his head and looked at Hulk. Hulk was looking at Xia Yu expectantly, like a child who had done something for an adult and was waiting for encouragement. Xia Yu didn't feel comfortable blaming him. Good job, Hulk. Go out and beat up the bad guys. I need to ask him a few questions. Hulk jumped out happily after receiving the praise. Xia Yu looked at Loki, who was lying on the ground like a torn sack, and sighed. Sadly. Chapter 100. New York City was attacked by aliens, half of Manhattan was in chaos, and the Avengers and Chitauri were fighting in a hail of bullets and artillery fire. Meanwhile, Xia Yu, one of the Avengers' leaders, said to the Chitauri commander, the leader of this invasion, Loki, who had just woken up, with a cheerful face, how are you? Are you feeling better? Hulk was very ruthless. I almost died trying to treat you. Loki woke up from his coma and when he opened his eyes he saw Xia Yu's big smiling face. But aren't they enemies? Why is Loki looking at him with such a smile on his face, and seems to be concerned about him? Loki, who is confused about the situation, opens his mouth to say something, but doesn't know what to say. He just looks at Xia Yu with a little fear and more confusion. This kid must have been scared by the Hulk. Xia Yu said, reaching out to touch the scar on Loki's face. Loki wanted to hide, but for some reason he couldn't move. He could only watch as Xia Yu gently touched the scar on his face. The gentle touch reminded Loki of the feeling of Frigga touching his face when he was a child to coax him to sleep. What are you doing? Loki trembled and finally opened his mouth to say those words. What else can I do? I am definitely concerned about your injury. But I am your elder brother. Don't be afraid, little brother, that cruel Hulk. Once this matter is dealt with, I will give him a good beating in front of you, okay? Xia Yu's voice became more and more gentle. Loki was originally blown down from midair by Hawkeye, then grabbed by Xia Yu and thrown to Hulk, who beat him half to death on the ground, and then used him as a human weapon to hit him all the way. Loki was basically unconscious. As a result, after being awakened by Xia Yu and facing such a strange scene, even though Loki is known as the god of lies and mischief, his brain is now completely shut down. So, after the seriously injured and confused Loki felt the care and tenderness from Xia Yu that he had only felt from Frigga as a child, when asked if Xia Yu was okay, he nodded as if possessed by a ghost and said in a very obedient way, okay. Seeing that his method was so effective, Xia Yu suppressed his joy, reached out to comb Loki's messy hair, and said, okay, I beat you last time for your own good. Your father Odin personally asked me to take care of you two brothers. Thor is my brother, and so are you. I don't blame you for what happened on Earth this time, but you have to tell me, besides you and the Chitauri, who else came to Earth with you? Loki shook his head. To be honest, he wasn't fully awake yet. Xia Yu's eyes changed, his voice was still gentle but a little colder than before. Impossible, I'm sure there are others this time, definitely not just you and Chitauri, tell big brother quickly, who else it is, you must know, think about it again. Poor Loki, he really tried hard to recall, but still shook his head at Xia Yu. He swears to God, he really didn't know. Xia Yu suppressed his temper and tried to use a natural and gentle tone to guide Loki to recall the past. However, for several times, Loki still shook his head firmly to indicate that he had not. Xia Yu smiled again, but this time her smile was very gentle. Words like beautiful and crying were not related at all. If one had to use an adjective, perhaps sinister or vicious would be more appropriate. Loki was startled by what he saw, and his mind seemed to be a little clearer. He supported himself with both hands and paddled forward vigorously. Loki subconsciously wanted to stay away from Xia Yu. Xia Yu pressed Loki's ankle with one hand and pulled him closer to her. His tone was calm but sinister as he said, "You kid, I've talked to you nicely but you just won't listen. Don't blame me for trying another way." As soon as Xia Yu finished speaking, he flipped his right hand, holding the Yishan sword in his hand. Xia Yu loosened his hand, and his right hand quickly turned over, holding the Yishan sword in his backhand and stabbed it hard at Loki's thigh. Ah! Loki's mind was now completely clear. This devil, if he had known that he would meet him when he came to Earth, he would never have come even if he died. What about ruling the Earth, what about being the king of Asgard? Loki now just wanted the man in front of him to disappear. Xia Yu's sword stabbed Loki's thigh, but did not injure the bone. It was not a serious injury to the body of the Asgard god, but it was painful enough. "I'll ask you again, who else came to Earth with you? If you dare to lie to me again, I will cut off both your arms and legs and plant you in the park for people to see." Xia Yu threatened viciously. "Really not. It's just me and the Chitauri army. Even if there are other people, it has nothing to do with me. I really don't know anything." Loki seemed a little collapsed and started yelling at Xia Yu. Xia Yu looked at Loki. This didn't seem like a lie, but who else could come? Thanos' Black Order? Or Gamora or Nebula? Xia Yu drew out the heavenly sword, pushed Loki aside, and began to ponder. In the outer space outside the portal, about 10 kilometers away from the Chitauri mothership, there is another huge amounts of spaceship hidden, which is Thanos' holy place number 2. At the moment, there were a man in a black robe and a man in a green uniform with a silver-white 8-pointed star on his chest standing in the bridge. Xia Yu would definitely recognize them. This was the leader of the Kree team in Captain Marvel, named Marvel. This man followed Captain Marvel all the way to Earth, hunted down the Skrulls and wanted to obtain the Tesseract. After being defeated by Captain Marvel, he returned to the Kree and was used as a punching bag by Ronan the Accused. Later, Ronan helped Thanos and was taken to his side by Thanos. When Thanos gave Loki the psychic scepter, he volunteered to come to Earth to retrieve the Tesseract. With the idea of adding an extra layer of insurance, Thanos gave him Holy Place number 2 and asked him to come to Earth and take back the Tesseract when Loki failed. Thanos promised him that if he succeeded, he would give him Holy Place number 2 and help him return to the Kree to replace Ronan. Before coming, Thanos repeatedly warned him that he could only take action after Loki failed, and that he was not allowed to attack the Earth. His only mission was to get the Tesseract back. Holy Place number 2 was the prize for success, not the attack ship this time. Thanos is well aware of the power of Asgard or Odin. It doesn't matter if Loki leads the Chitauri to attack the Earth. If his warships dare to attack the Earth or appear near the Earth or the Nine Realms, Asgard's Bifrost will instantly destroy all fleets. No one knows that Bifrost destroyed the universe yet. Almost all the Chitauri troops have been dispatched. That idiot Loki has lost track of the priorities of the tasks. It's time for you to take action. Remember, Lord Thanos' mission is to get the Tesseract back. Remember this clearly. This is your only chance. The man in black robe pointed at Marvel and said condescendingly. Dear messenger, please rest assured. I am not as incompetent as that idiot Loki. I can definitely complete the task. Marvel said obediently with his head down. Marvel clenched his fists tightly and swore a poisonous oath in his heart, Furs, Ronan and this damn C-53 planet, when I take control of this holy place too and return to the Kree tribe to take back my own glory, I will make you all pay the price. No one noticed that a small invisible lifeboat quietly flew through the wormhole and entered the Earth. I had something to do today so the update is late, and the number of words is not very large. In the evening, a book friend left a message saying that school will start tomorrow, and asked me if I could update more today. I'm really sorry, I really can't do it today. I'd like to say sorry to you here, and I wish you academic progress. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.